no, Tukios, you, no, Tukios.
Websites and videos, I'm using Tukios. Everything I need and more, I'm using Tukios. Better than ever before, I'm using Tukios. Tukios, yeah. Hey, yeah, gonna say it right now. Simple software, they're the best now, hands down. Curtis Funk leading, what you know about that commission so high, like Snoop wrote the contract. AI's real good, but the people still real. Call them up, give them love, man. Tell them how you feel. Websites, everything but a cookie cutter. It means your site looks better than every other. Websites and videos, I'm using Tukios. Everything I need and more, I'm using Tukios. Better than ever before, I'm using Tukios. Tukios, yeah. Websites and videos, I'm using Tukios. Everything I need and more, I'm using Tukios. Better than ever before, I'm using Tukios. Tukios, Chad Rumby on the horns now. Get your hands up, get your hands up, get your hands up.
All right. Okay, that I got to shout out Eli Gable on the vocals and the music production for the Tukios rap. Thank you to our title sponsor, Tukios. Okay, yesterday, I hope everybody had an amazing time. Shout out to Inman again for their grill master skills. Amazing lunch, live stream. Sorry you missed that. It was awesome. The thickest cookies. I think the icing on the cookies was as thick as the cookie, which is always good. So thank you, everyone, for being back in the room. We've got a great day lined up today. So we are going to kick off with prayer and devotional again, and then we're going to roll into an interview with my friend Charlie from Tribute Technology, our marketing panel, our travel panel, and then we've got some cool one-on-one interviews to round out the day. We're going to do a special episode of Scrap Talking with Kevin McKay and Cremation Recycling. And we're going to wrap up the day with an AI conversation. So stay tuned in all day, because the AI conversation with my friend Antonio Green from James H. Cole Home for Funerals in Detroit, Michigan, real application of how a high-volume firm is using AI in the daily operations of their funeral home. And then we're going to wrap Curtis Funk into that as well. At the end of that conversation, I was able to have a conversation with Curtis and Antonio at the same time. And when I listened to them riff off each other about AI, I'm like, hey, we need to make this conversation happen on the live stream. So excited for that. It's going to be a great day. Again, live stream, the feedback was fantastic. So I want to shout out Spintown Creative, who is producing the entire live stream, all of the lower thirds, the camera angles, all the fun stuff. I've been asked about the recording. So we will be sending out recordings of day 1 and day 2. To everybody who is registered, and those will be coming out in the next few days. High quality, high def, so great recordings. If you miss anything, you will get access to those. So we're going to start the day the way that we do, and kind of usher in the Holy Spirit and His presence on this day. So Kihryn, come on up. My daughter Kihryn.
Thank you. Okay, let's pray. God, I thank you for today. I thank you for everyone that made it on the live stream and in the room. I pray that your presence would be here and you would let us have a wonderful day. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. So when I was preparing for today, I was thinking about what I talked about yesterday. We established we have a dream. We want to live in the dream. But what happens when we're in the dream and life gets hard? I remember in December of this year, I had launched the book. Everything was going so good. I couldn't have asked it to go better. And then school hit and everything just got into the thick of it. And I had 10 classes. I had to speak back-to-back weekends at different conferences. And I had school, and it all just felt like a lot. And I was like, God, I know you called me to do this, but it's so hard. And so a verse came to me, and it was John 16:33. It said, I have told you All this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth you will have trials and sorrows, but take heart because I have overcome the world. And a lot of you start companies, you work for companies, and it's the dream to start the company, and you start it, and it gets really hard. And you feel like, oh, I got to give up, like this is too hard. Like Curtis's story yesterday of just, he had to do some things that weren't completely what he had planned to do and just figure it out. And that's part of life, is just figuring everything out. And I was scrolling on my Instagram today, and this little quote came up, and it was so good. It says, keep being faithful without being known. God will make a way. Without knowing what the result will be on the other side of your yes. God sees, God knows, God provides. His ways are better, his thoughts are higher, he sees the greater picture, and he is the one that calls you faithful. And I just think in the hard seasons in life, being faithful is all you have to do. God sees the work even if no one else sees it. God rewards you when you do the hard things. So I don't know if you're in a hard season in life or a good season in life. Being a Christian doesn't mean that everything's always going to be easy, but it does mean that God's your peace, and there'll be peace in every situation that you go through in life. Even if it gets hard, there's always a mountain on the other side of your valley. So I just want to pray over you guys that in that situation in life, in that point in life, that you feel comfort and peace in him. So God, I just pray that you release your peace over everyone in this room, God, that you release your presence, God, in their life, God, that you would let them know that no matter what comes against them in life, God, you're always going to be there to comfort them and show them that you're the God of the mountain and you're also the God of the valley, God. So I just pray that you would be with them and comfort them, and let us just have a great day and be with all the panelists, God, that you would help them speak what makes them great, God, and what you've instilled in them. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Kihryn. I got asked multiple times yesterday after Kihryn spoke, and then in the room, my other daughter, Quincy, has been helping serve and do things, and the questions that I get most of the time when people meet my daughters is like, how did you do it? How did you raise such great kids? And this is my platform, I'm gonna talk about it for a second. So, it wasn't me, it was my wife, number one. Number two, I believe that it is just a partnership with the Holy Spirit. Like, we dedicated our kids to the Lord when they were born and said, God, like, whatever you want to happen in their life, use us as the instrument and the tool to make that happen. So thank you to my family. Like, you all know your families sacrifice everything so we can do what we do and be in the rooms and travel and the events and the speaking. All of you have left your families this week to be here. So I want to acknowledge the families that it is equally as much, if not more, of a sacrifice for them to support us in what we do as it is for us to be away from businesses and doing things. So shout out to the family. Thank you. Kihryn, great job. And I believe you've got some more books if anybody wants a copy of your devotional. It's also available on Amazon live stream. We dropped that in the chat, the link to Amazon for her 30-day devotional. So up next, I want to bring up Charlie Cole from Tribute Technology. Yeah, just go ahead and sit right there. Let's see, Charlie and Tribute are a featured sponsor of the Unconference. And let's see, Tribute has been involved the last 2 years. Prior to that, some of the other companies have been involved. But let's see, you and I met, we met in person at ICCFA.
I think I met you over Zoom like my third week or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was your first week.
It might have been it was really early.
I think it was right in the beginning of you coming on with Tribute. We did a call, and then we did a webinar.
Yep.
And that webinar, I remember on the call you were talking about some of your just what you've done in the past before coming into deathcare, being new into deathcare. Walk me through that real quick.
Yeah. One warning for everybody: I've been battling a head cold forever, and it's just kind of resurfaced this morning. So if my voice cracks, I'm I'm done with puberty. It's not that. So my background is really digital. If you were to make my resume super simple, statistician turned digital marketer turned e-commerce guy. That's my resume. But I was the head of digital for Tumi. Tumi was acquired by Samsonite, and I built the global e-commerce practice at Samsonite. I was the CEO of FTD, took that company out of bankruptcy, and then sold it approximately 3 years later. I launched a digital advertising agency when I was 23 and sold that when I was 25. And then I was the head of e-commerce at Lucky Brand, vitamin company called Shift Nutrition. And then I founded a fashion group called Assembled Brands in New York City. But the fabric for all of that, because it's kind of all over the place, right? It's jeans, it's vitamins, it's luggage. The fabric is, I'm an analyst, right? And so I think if you're gonna run a very successful digital business these days, a focus on kind of the analytics and the basics there is probably the core and foundation of my background. And I'm colorblind, so creative people love me. So they never have to worry about me giving them feedback.
Huh. Interesting.
Fun fact, of the 8 executives at Tribute, 2 of us are colorblind. All right, guys, I'm out of here. This has been fun.
That's interesting. So very, very cool. On that first webinar that we did, but even in our first conversation, it was like, what are you tackling first at Tribute? And
there's no way I knew the answer to that question.
No, it was kind of all over, but there was a consensus of we've got all of these companies that we've acquired and now put into a family, and it was getting the technology kind of connected, right? Like,
yeah.
I think the terminology was on the same rails.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is this. And Eric actually did a great job bringing this up yesterday, which is change is really hard within a funeral home, right? So it's super easy for me to look a funeral home in the eye and be like, hey, our website will be better than the one you have right now. That's super easy. But if they decide to make that change, that means retraining an entire funeral home, right? And don't even get me started if they decide to make a change on management software, right? Like the changing cost, even if you get beyond the technology, even if you get beyond the data transfer, just the actual changing cost for personnel is massive. It's extremely disruptive to your business. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that all of our clients, regardless on what platform they were on, because I think most people know Tribute really grew as like via acquisition. You made that point yesterday that we bought. So like, if you're on FrontRunner, if you're on Funeral Tech, if you're on CFS, if you're on MKJ, if you're on SRS, whatever these things are, we needed to create a system that allowed us to give the best to all of those people without asking them to change their business practice. And that was really an undertaking that Tribute hadn't done. And so that's been a lot of the focus over the course of the last year. And yeah, we've made a ton of progress, but it's been whack-a-mole for sure.
Well, yeah. So how is that going? I mean, that's probably the biggest question that I get asked.
So the short answer is it's going awesome. I would tell you when I joined Tribute, there was a moment about 2 weeks in where I was like, what have I gotten myself into? You know what I mean? Because there really had never been that effort. All these businesses, there was a phrase within the Tribute company, which is we had the 13 original colonies, right? And they were all just kind of walled off and doing their own thing. And so that takes a lot of work to make that, and you certainly have to break some eggs to get there. But at this point now, we've done a remarkable job. We're rolling out a funnel, an initiative right now called One Funnel that basically allows every single one of our e-commerce platforms, our website platforms, to have sort of like the best of the best without asking people to change their back end, right? That's really a really good kind of culmination of all of that. But the amount of innovation coming out of Tribute right now is the fastest and best it's ever been, because I'll be perfectly honest. My first 6 months, I almost banned the word innovation, right? It was more about like, let's make sure we're keeping our promises first. Like, I don't really care about putting something new and shiny out in the world unless we're delivering the initial promise we've made to funeral homes. And so once you get past that wave, you can actually start to do some fun stuff, right? And that's where we are now. So I think the company is having a lot more fun because we sort of, if we kind of fixed the glitch, you know what I mean? And now it's about kind of making our platforms even better, which is, we're pushing out more innovation now than we frankly ever had.
Okay, so a year in.
Yep, 14 months.
To deathcare, and coming in knowing nothing, now that you've been here for 14 months, what's the number one thing that you have learned about funeral homes and the profession?
Well, I'm going to say something that's going to sound a little sappy, which is the people in this profession just freaking rule. You know, like I'm sitting on a panel with Eric, Curtis, and John yesterday, and we're probably all competitors to a certain extent, and they're all just exceptional human beings, right? And so there is something about this profession that is, and then you get to the funeral directors themselves, and it kind of makes sense, right? Like if you think about all the traits that you look for in people you want to surround yourself, right? Just generic traits. You're probably looking for empathy and respect and patience and compassion. And boy, oh boy, do funeral directors have this in spades, right? And so I was joking earlier that my first 3 months, I basically followed Courtney Gould Miller around like a puppy because I was just like, what are we going to learn next? Like, who do I have to meet next? What do I have to do next? And every single person I met has this just passion to improve the profession for the better. And so I think one of the smartest things I've done over the last 14 months is we have a group called the Customer Advisory Board. It's about 30 funeral homes around the country. Some are larger consolidators like Jimmy Altmeyer. Some are independent funeral homes. Some are from Carriage. But the thing that is so cool about this profession is if we follow your lead, we're going to do great things. Right, and so the number one thing that we do, and we put this process in, it's a little kind of cliche, but I call it the Hippocratic Oath, right? Which is everything Tribute does. If you were all to attend, we have an e-commerce prioritization meeting on Friday, where we basically talk about like what are the new things we're going to roll out for the flower and tree store. We have a lot of meetings like that. If the only way you move to the top of the prioritization list is if your idea benefits A, the funeral home, B, the family, and C, the community of that family. Nothing gets put on the list if we compromise any of those things. And I don't think that's how Tribute thought in the past, to be perfectly honest. John was referencing kind of the new legacy. I think Tribute, at times, you sort of lost the forest through the trees, right? Because all this time we're talking about flowers and trees, and it's just like, guys, it's probably like the least important part of your website. Like, let's be honest, right? It's also not like a key part of the family experience. And so that refocus and reprioritization is probably the number one thing I've learned, which is, if we follow the funeral home's lead, we'll do great things. And if you do that, the profession we all lift each other up as well, which I think is pretty special.
All right, I've got 2 more questions for you. So if we're following the funeral home's lead, what's coming next from Tribute?
Our websites are going to be the best cash machines in your business. There was a saying I used to have when I worked at Toomey, which is, you have to reimagine what your store window is, right? Because fashion brands in particular, the Versace store in New York City costs $50 million a year to actually, the rent is $50 million. That's a real number. And the reason people did that is they thought that was basically a billboard. It was basically a marketing play. If they sell stuff, great. Your new store window, the amount of time funeral homes have spent on their landscaping and their design and their architecture, you have to kind of quintuple that effort in the concept of your digital presence, right? So what Tribute wants is to basically make every single funeral home that works with us the leading digital brand in their community. And that might sound a little bit far-fetched, but I mean it, right? Your digital presence has to be the best in your community. It needs to be better than obviously all the other funeral homes, but you're also competing with mindshare every single day on the internet. Like, imagine the stuff that you're going to get thrown at you from your cell phone today, the amount of content you're going to consume today. Funeral homes are part of that extremely noisy world, but the thing Tribute's going to be rolling out, you'll see it like pretty much every single quarter. Like I was just talking to John about rolling out, like, I think every single one of our website will have an automated CRM program to turn condolence givers into Google reviews, right? Every single person that sends flowers and trees, we're going to put them in an automated flow to hopefully turn them into pre-need lead, offer them grief counseling, all these sort of things. So we really need to just continue to roll out innovations that has funeral homes be the best digital brand in their community. And that's going to be our focus. And so there's a couple other things coming that are going to kind of blow you away. We're working on a project called Pathways. If you're a funeral home, I'll show it to you. If you're a competitor, I won't. But we have a lot of stuff coming. I'll show it to you. You're all right. You're all right.
That's good. Okay, so we alluded to it yesterday. You and I talked about it as well. We had you on with C&J as C&J acquired the funding arm of Tribute. Tribute
Or
was
Jamie dubbed me the second most handsome guy in the funeral profession because he's first, if I remember correctly.
That's
Jamie.
very true.
That's correct.
That was
Okay.
absolutely
Making sure.
the truth, and
All right, still same. All right, cool.
he's got the T-shirt and the trophy, so
I
it
know,
makes
yeah.
it real.
That's fair.
So, I mean, Tribute was the acquisition company, right? So, is acquisition still part of the play? Are we done with acquisitions?
Oh God, no, we're not done with acquisitions. The thing about acquisitions is, I think in the past, what Tribute did is they basically kind of picked off emerging competitors. That was the strategy, and I can't actually say that definitively. I mean, Matt Frazier could probably answer that question better than I could. That is not what we're doing today, right? What we're looking for on acquisitions today is kind of like things that'll actually make our platform better. So we're always open for business, just to be perfectly honest. We're actually looking at a couple right now. So we're certainly not closing acquisitions, but I will say the focus has changed. It's not about just protecting your turf. It's about actually acquiring technologies that make us better. And so I will also say this, in addition to acquisitions, our partnerships are probably one of my biggest focuses. We talked about C&J, right? C&J's, we talked about Elevia. We have a huge partnership with them. We talked about homesteaders. But one of the other things that's really cool about Tribute is we're owned by a really big private equity firm called Carlyle, which gives us access to things that literally no other company in the space has. For example, we are one of 5 companies on the face of this earth that has an enterprise partnership with OpenAI. 5. And it's not because of Tribute, it's because of Carlyle, right? We get access to it because of Carlyle. I'm actually flying home to Seattle after this and having dinner with the chief digital officer of Carlyle and an executive from OpenAI. So if you're wondering how AI is going to change the profession, I promise you, we're going to lead the way. And it's just because we have an unfair advantage. And so I think that acquisitions are one thing, but I'm probably that much more bullish, Ryan, on kind of our partnerships to kind of push things forward in the near term.
Love it. Well, hey, thank you so much for being a featured sponsor.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And being part of the panels.
I would also tell you, I don't know if anybody else feels it. I feel like your daughter is like better than a shot of espresso. Like starting the morning off like that is a great way to start.
Yeah,
Thanks
it's
for having
awesome.
me.
Thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, we're going to keep the day just cruising, and so I need Curtis to come up. Curtis is going to moderate our marketing panel with Richard and John and myself. So John, come on up here. Richard, come up. It's not fair for me to moderate the marketing panel, so Curtis is going to do that, and I'm going to be a panelist.
And I'm not going to do as good of a job as Ryan's been doing.
That's
But
not true.
luckily, I've got a script for this one. So, all right, well, we'll follow your lead from yesterday and have you go down the line here and introduce yourselves.
Cool. Let's start with Richard.
Richard Martin, Ring Ring Marketing. We are a full stack digital marketing based out of Las Vegas, and we help funeral homes.
Perfect. John Lefrandt, CEO and founder of Elevia, formerly known as Domanicare, and it is a consumer experience platform that is continuing to grow and evolve, and we'll probably talk about that soon.
Yes, we will. And stay tuned, because I will be doing a one-on-one with John to learn more about Elevia and the things that you guys are doing, and with Richard as well. So right after this. I'm Ryan Thogmartin, Disrupt Media, connectingdirectors.com, and we started the Unconference, and we're a creative agency that serves deathcare.
It's a conference where we can wear T-shirts. It's my
It's
first day in a T-shirt at a conference.
T-shirts.
I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Pleather pants,
I was going to wear shorts, but
whatever you want.
Yeah, I was thinking shorts too until I saw the high chairs, and I was like, no one wants
not a
to
good
see these
idea.
white thighs.
Got the camera coming right there.
Gotta get some pants. Okay, well, let's go in that order, and we'll start down with Richard and start ripping through some questions here, and you guys can obviously bounce off each other. The first question for you, Richard, is, given the increasing importance of digital presence in the death care industry, what strategies can Ring Ring Marketing recommend to funeral homes that are looking to enhance their online reputation and attract more clients through digital channels?
Well, in terms of increasing your online reputation, you've really got to put a program in place if you're a funeral home to basically ask for it. Ask that family for the review. Ask them, how was the service? Because it's like the pretty girl at school, right, guys? If you don't ask, the answer is always no. So you got to have a program in place that does that, because online reviews is what builds trust and credibility within your community. And if you want to be that go-to firm, you've got to have that in place at minimum.
Excellent. Yeah, I would say.
I concur with that. Yeah, reviews is game-changing, as I think we all know, and this profession has been historically not great at it because it's so terribly awkward to ask. You're not going to ask for a review at the arrangement conference. You're not going to ask for it at the viewing. It's inappropriate to do that. So it is important to find the right time and the right way. I'm obviously a big fan of text messaging and doing it at a period just a little bit after it while the thoughts are still fresh. But it's crucial. And there are firms that are 100% focused on it, and they're gaining more at-need business because of it. So it's important. The game has kind of changed in that regard, and it's super important that you have a Google review strategy in place.
I would just piggyback off that and say, the value of the review is a lot of times the relationship.
Yeah.
Because the consumer that's reading the review potentially has a relationship with the reviewer, and it has higher credibility. So a firm that's making it a point through their digital presence to build relationships in the community, whether that be through interactions knee-to-knee like this, and kind of the traditional ways of doing that, but also through a digital presence, extending a handshake, extending a knee-to-knee conversation that looks different but can have the same level of depth. I will never replace the value of that knee-to-knee interaction. However, getting a positive review after building that relationship allows that review to have more weight, and the reviewer having that relationship with who's reading it is extremely valuable as well.
Excellent. Just one quick comment. Like, we hired a new employee a couple years ago, and I thought, you know what, he doesn't know anything yet, so let me just try something with him. And I said, sit down at this computer, imagine your uncle died in Southern California. What do? You're in charge of this. What do you do? And he said, well, so I just watched him. I said, just do what you would do. Jumps on the internet, jumps on Google, Southern California Funeral Home, starts going through the whole thing. Reviews. That was what he cared about most, right? I mean, obviously it was had to be in the Google 3-pack, which Ring talks about a lot, but those reviews were, we care a lot about what other people think.
Yep.
They're crucial. So John, you kind of clarified Elevia for us. We were curious yesterday how to pronounce it. And then you mentioned something in your intro today, which was customer experience. So maybe explain what exactly is customer experience, what does it look like in our profession, and why is it important?
Yeah, so again, as often happens, sometimes the funeral profession, death care, can be a little bit behind what other industries are doing, but there are a lot of industries, there's a huge focus on customer experience or consumer experience specifically. And that, I always ask funeral homes, I'm like, okay, do you have that as a line item in your budget? And they all look at you like, no, I don't. And it's because we haven't really thought about it. But marketing and just the new technologies that are there, it's kind of transformed that, where there is more power to the voice of that consumer. And I think that is such a good thing for our profession. We already have always been focused on caring about people first and foremost. I think, well, at least the good businesses have always cared about people first and foremost. Well, now those people can be your brand ambassadors. But you have to look at it and assess every step along that journey, every interaction that you have. I often do a presentation, I ask funeral homes, okay, write every single interaction you can that you have with the consumer. And you get a list of, 6, 7, 8 different interactions, and then I put up on the screen a list of 50 interactions, because it really is every aspect. It is when you're going to the restroom in the lobby at the funeral home, what does that experience look like? The mints that are there when the family needs it, the ice cold water bottles when they're, sitting down in an arrangement conference, picking up, the body. All of these interactions are touch points. That is the consumer experience. That is that journey. And then you can look at it and say, how can we enhance that? How can we make that better? And every little fine tune and tweak makes it a better experience, and it makes you better as a business. So that's really what it is, and that is why we kind of evolved to this Elevia concept too, is we had started very niche with aftercare, and once we kind of maximize that opportunity, realize there's so much more that we can do on every interaction, with any potential customer that you have in your market.
What would you recommend in practice? Maybe you guys can jump on this too. Like, what would you recommend? Like, if I'm a funeral home owner, like, what do I do now to try and track those touch points? And like, is it technology that's like with Elevia, where you guys are headed with it, that's going to help me track it and improve it? Or what's like the practical application of this?
The one exercise that I think every funeral home should do with their staff is exactly that, is just do the exercise and pick one consumer journey, just one. And then try to get as granular as you can and just follow what that journey looks like. And I think when you do it, look at those Google reviews. You put this new employee that had no experience, oh, what does my Google business page look like? What pictures am I using? What description am I having? What do the reviews, when was the last review given? What is the phone number? Is that still working? Is the email right? You can look through all those interactions, then take it, follow that person all the way through to the end of that journey. Every time you do that, because there's lots of them, it's not like it's all linear, but there's lots of them. But I think that exercise of just putting yourself in the shoes of the consumer is going to illuminate so many opportunities for you.
That's awesome.
Go off of that. I believe too that, when we put our employees in those situations, sometimes we don't always get back the most honest feedback, right? So what's the value of putting in place some sort of secret shopper, right? Because in a community, your team's gonna a lot of times know somebody that's coming in, so the experience for that consumer could be different based on the relationship in the firm. I remember just when I was a kid, we would go to the one time a month we would eat out was at this restaurant called Max and Irma's, and it was because my parents got a free meal and they were secret evaluators, but my mom would spend like an hour filling out 30 pages of like, she'd have to go to the bar and order a drink, the bathrooms, the hostess, how the server, how many times they came back and asked for refills, and like they would evaluate it, but you would see evidence of the evaluation going, hey, this is the change that we made in the restaurant with the hostess, with the server. So, getting somebody that's a friend of the funeral home that can be honest with the owner and say, okay, I need you to just pull in the parking lot, come to a service, and critique absolutely everything from the second you pull in. There was a crack that needs patched. There was a pothole. The lamp was out and the lights. Like, what does that look like? And are we doing that? And then actually getting the feedback and implementing in that customer experience, because this is the marketing panel, right? And that experience, like marketing starts the second somebody has an interaction with your brand, regardless where that's at. And that can absolutely be just pulling in the parking lot for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you hit on a really big point, and that is honesty, right? And it's having the good, honest look at what that experience is. And when we initially started things on the Elevia side, people were scared of reviews because they were worried that they were going to get negative reviews if they asked for them. And to me, it's knowledge is power. Even a negative review can be a very positive experience because you can look at it and say, gosh, how do I make that right? And then how do we make sure that we improve upon it in the future? We shouldn't be afraid of the feedback that we're getting. And sometimes, I think in this profession, we kind of just get worried and we hunker down and it's like, don't ask, like we don't want to find out. But if you can be honest and open with it, look at that as an opportunity for improvement.
I agree with you 100% because if you take a look at reviews in and of itself, it really highlights the consumer experience. They're giving you direct feedback, whether good or bad. But if it is a bad review, I really believe that you should take full accountability, ownership, and respond to it in a meaningful way that says, okay, yeah, we messed up, but we're changing things to make things right. So I think that's really important for firms to do these days.
I think your best opportunities are those negative reviews and negative feedback in times that you've screwed up as a company, or some of the best opportunities you have to create brand loyalty, how you deal with that problem, right? Awesome. Okay, I'll jump over to Ryan. You're running this campaign, Disrupt Sucks. You got to tell us about this, why, and everything else about,
So, I mean, there's a lot behind why Disrupt Sucks, and we have a lot of content coming out, more documentary style to break down that. But I mean, we've talked about Disrupt over the last decade of being a social media agency, when really yes, social is where I believe the lowest hanging fruit for branding for a funeral home digitally. It's where the consumer's at, to be able to get in their front pocket, to be able to, be present on a device, is social. But also, like traditional marketing, there's still value in it, and it still works when ran properly, and you have a full comprehensive strategy around marketing. And so for us, we've never really launched a big, long campaign in death care. Like we do little hit fast, we move quick, we're kind of crazy and all out there. And so Disrupt Sucks we launched it right before ICCFA, and it'll run through the rest of the year with some things happening, some cool things happening at NFDA. But the thought process behind it really stems from when I was a kid. The only piece of advertising that I remember outside of the commercial where they would crack the egg and it'd be like, this is your brain on drugs. Like, I don't know why I remember that one. And it was like, the more you know, like the commercial really gave you no value whatsoever other than this is your brain on drugs. And the only other piece of marketing that I remember, I remember being 9, riding in the back of my dad's Volkswagen Bug, looking out, like I was behind the seat. I don't know why, like how this was even legal or allowed, but there was like the back seat, and then there was like the cubby where the hatch was at. And I was sitting in that, looking out the little round window, and there was a billboard for Kirby Sweepers. Does anybody remember Kirby Sweepers? And like, these salespeople were like ninjas. They would go door to door, they'd come in, they'd run your vacuum, and then they would take the Kirby sweeper and run it over where they just ran your vacuum. They had this filter in it, and they would show you just how dirty your carpet was still after they ran. And they would sell these expensive sweepers. It was wild, but there was a billboard, and it was just all white and had a red Kirby sweeper on it, and it said, "Our sweepers suck." And like, I don't know why that stuck with me, but like that was their thing. Their sweepers were more powerful than anything that was on the market. And so I threw that out at my team and said, look, we got to do something with Disrupt Sucks. And they said, well, we can't just throw up a billboard or a banner at a convention or flyers or digital ads that say Disrupt Sucks without any type of like theme behind it. So it is kind of political season. I don't think anybody really loves that, but so we launched a campaign that was paid for by funeral directors against good social media, and it was Disrupt Sucks. And it was more about just immediately just getting awareness, and it worked. We got a ton of emails about, hey, your email list was hacked, and I was getting text messages from a lot of people like, hey, who is this group, and why do they hate you so much? And which was absolutely the point. How much awareness can we generate? Which generated a ridiculous amount of leads as well, because funeral homes are like, wait a second, what are you doing? And this makes sense coming from you. And so, the whole idea behind it is, if a firm partners with Disrupt Media, we help you suck business away from the competition. Like, that's the easy part of it. But the back end of that is that, we have to do marketing that's rememberable. If nobody remembers that they saw it, what's the value in it? And this profession is rampant with marketing that is, I got messaged a grocery shopping cart ad today. So grocery shopping cart, funeral home ad. There is so much content on this like 6x9 ad that it's like no one's gonna, like the funeral home logo is like literally this big in the bottom corner, and it's like serving our community for 50 billion years, and here's 900 things that we do, and pet services and cremation, and it's like no one's gonna remember that because there's nothing that strikes my attention. But like if that was just a 6x9 that had a logo this big on it and said this is an ad for a funeral home, like that would be memorable. And so it was, we got to rethink the way that we capture people's attention. And the Disrupt Sucks campaign was more about just capturing attention, and we'll figure out what to do with that attention. And we have a plan for it, but the initial was just how do we create something that people remember when they see it, and showcase that in death care, that you can do things that are, I don't think a funeral home should run an ad that's our funeral home sucks. Like that wouldn't make sense. But There are campaigns that could be ran across digital, across traditional, that would convert if they are rememberable. And we've ran billboard campaigns with clients that, we have a testimonial video coming out from a client that has increased call volume because of traditional marketing partnered with digital, but the billboards are what are rememberable. Like, they are rememberable, and then now there's a connection. I saw it online and I saw it on this billboard. Like, people will look at a billboard, but most of the time there's so much crap on the billboard that, if it's a billion years serving this community, here's a picture of our staff, here's a picture of our funeral home, here's the address, the website, the phone number. No one remembers any of that because nothing is striking. And so, long answer to a simple question, we were just trying to get awareness and create conversation.
I want to add to that. What Ryan did there was really genius. It's really simple too, but we call that in a direct response world pattern interrupt. I mean, Charlie talked about it earlier. When we leave this room today, we're going to be bombarded with thousands of marketing messages. Out of all those messages, how many will you remember? I'm going to remember his. Excuse me. Because yours sucked. Yeah, I mean, it's a simple message, but it really hits home on, the getting attention factor. You got attention. You were able to generate leads, and that's what it's all about.
Data shows that if a funeral home can grab the attention of the consumer and they can build a relationship, there's an 80% chance, 80% of funeral home business is relationship driven. So if you can pattern interrupt, to use that, and grab attention, then now that consumer's in the funnel, and the likelihood, if you build a relationship with them with more content, I think NFDA's consumer survey is like 90.4% of consumers shop 0 to 1 funeral home. So if you can grab their attention, get them in the funnel, build a relationship through the right content, there's less than a 10% chance that they navigate outside of that funnel in a pre-need or at-need scenario. So, a Helen Keller quote doesn't grab my attention. I don't think that anybody's ever going to scroll through Facebook and go, you know what? That's a dang good Helen Keller quote. That's the funeral home I want my family to use. But if it's this is an ad for a funeral home and it's got your face on it and that's memorable, and then the next piece of content is about how I got into funeral service, and then the next piece of content that I serve up because you watch 10 seconds of that video continues that story, and now I know more about you, I've developed a relationship. One of the reasons that we've integrated our family so much into what we do is just one, because it's a sacrifice to leave my family. So if they can just cruise with me, that's awesome. If they can go to dinners, that's awesome. But the relationship factor, like, it's cool for my kids to walk around a convention and they're like, we're out of the booth, we have friends here. And they have certain vendors that they go see. Most of you remember them in strollers and hoverboards at this big, that's the relationship side of it. And when you create that through the right content, now the likelihood that consumer navigates outside of that funeral home funnel is really, really small.
You got anything on that, John? We good?
I'm good, yeah.
I'm trying to make sure we stretch this panel out longer than the tech panel, because we've been taking crap for that for 24 hours.
Tech panel went for, it was like the snowball that just went down the hill. No, just kidding. It was a great panel.
No, authenticity, I think, is huge. And I think of funeral home marketing. I think of Brad Speaks did these commercials when he was wearing a yellow golf shirt, and that's just super memorable, and it humanized him. And you're mentioning bringing your family around, that authenticity and people knowing you, I think is huge in any business. Okay, so we're gonna go back down to Richard. Considering the unique challenges faced by funeral homes in maintaining personal connections through digital platforms, what innovative digital marketing approaches can Ring Marketing recommend to foster strong, empathetic relationships with families online?
Wow, that was a pretty that was a mouthful question.
That's how I ask questions.
Anyway, sorry about that. What can we do? Well, I'm pretty simple. Just keep it simple. Have conversations with your family. Make it easy for them to reach out to you, whether that's through a text message, an email, or through a interface on your website, whether that's a chat feature. You just have to really make it simple for them to reach out to you. And I've got to stop talking because I have no idea why I'm losing my voice. So that's where I'll stop for now.
Did you find something in Scottsdale? You should. Dinner was wild.
We've got some bowls of mints over here. We should get you a mint.
Yeah.
This is a topic that I think you two know a lot about here.
Hit it, John.
Yeah, so again, not to repeat the long question, but talking about the relationship side of it, right? Is that what you were saying? Yeah, I think you have to think through all aspects of the business. And I think when I look at funeral homes, the most important is generally at need. Second most important, it seems to be pre-need, right? Because that's going to fuel that growth. Aftercare historically has been a little bit neglected. It's just the third. The business has already happened. But I think amplifying every connection with every person that you can is so important. And to your point, text messages, that's what I found was so incredible about when we started Elevia, which was then Domanicare, was the simplicity of that text. I mean, the raving fans that you can get from that simple act is insane to me. I remember I sat down with Todd Snyder, if you know, he has, 17 locations in Ohio. He was one of our very first accounts that gave us a shot. And I remember we went to go visit with him, and he sat down. He says, John, I need you to get out a pen and a paper. I have some feedback for you, and I really want to give this to you. And I was like, oh, crap. Like, what is this going to, And he said, we got our Greystone surveys back, and Elizabeth is the highest rated employee that we have on staff. And Elizabeth is the name that we use on our text message follow-up program. And so I was relieved. But just that spoke volumes to me about the simplicity of those acts. And that can happen off of a digital lead, right? It can happen off of a person that comes onto the website. It can happen to a person that just finished a pre-need. It can happen to somebody that just attended a service at the funeral home. You can find those little interactions that you can amplify with very simple acts that can turn people into being the highest rated on a satisfaction survey. So again, knowledge is power. Test, iterate, adjust, adapt. You'll find the formula that works, but there are best practices, absolutely, that I think panels like this can help reveal. But look at those and say, how can just those little fine-tuning make all the difference in the world? Everyone will be better for it. And I think, we also have this challenge with controlling the narrative around funeral service specifically. I think that there is a trend outside the profession of how valuable is it? Are they just money gouging? All these narratives are there. And if we can dive in and through marketing efforts, digital efforts, consumer experience efforts, and really fine-tune and tweak that, I think we can start controlling the narrative again and educating people on why funeral service matters, because it does in a hugely significant way. I know that personally from my own life. It helps with grief, it helps with connection, it helps with human empathy, all these things that we're all craving and desiring. You can leverage technology, you can leverage marketing, and you can do that in a very real and human way. And I think that it can amplify business tenfold, and it'll be good for the whole profession.
I think the theme of what we've talked about thus far, relationship, experience, attention, and the relationship and the experience really go hand in hand. Like being able to build a relationship through content, but then the experience and creating how can funeral homes do it better with the experience and the relationship, I think I can't remember the question, but I think that was part of it, right? I look at like when we data capture a consumer, it's, do we want name, address, phone number, zip code? We want all these pieces of data because now we can reach out to them multiple different ways. But there's 65% higher conversion when you just get name and phone number and email. Like if we shorten down just the form they have to fill out, we get them into the consumer into the funnel. The experience is better.
Well, the other thing though is think of businesses outside of the funeral profession. I'm a raving fan of Delta. I travel a ton. And to me, anytime Delta wants my information, I'm like, I know you're going to do something great with it.
Yeah.
And if that means that I'm going to be able to sit down in my chair and it's going to know my curated content and what movies I put on hold, and it's going to give me, all of that, then yeah, you can have my data because you're going to make it a better experience for me. And so we do have consumers that are going to be leery about giving their data, but if you do good by it and you continue to provide value when you take that, then they will give it to you again and again and again because you're going to make a better experience out of it, right?
That's good. That's good.
Sensitivity and being empathetic. Obviously, we're in the death care profession. How is marketing to the grieving family being exploited or being received from those particular people? Because obviously, we're in a sensitive business, and marketing can't be the same in traditional marketing versus our sensitive business, because we're reaching out to people that just lost someone.
I'm going to just summarize the question for the live stream. We had some comments on yesterday. We can't hear the questions. So, sensitivity and marketing in an empathetic profession. How do we navigate around marketing a funeral home where we need to be empathetic to a specific user? I'll let you guys hop in real quick.
Well, I think you just have to go into that situation with a mindset of giving. You really have to educate, demonstrate, and inform the consumer about the importance of, for example, pre-planning. You have to show them why it's important, why in the future they're going to need. This is a need-based service. Nobody wakes up today and say, I want to plan my funeral today. So, with a need-based service such as funeral services, you have to turn it into a want. And I think you do that with education.
Yeah, the thing I would just say on top of that is keep it human, right? It's like, don't overthink it. And if you're questioning it or if it's not performing, then get the feedback and find out why. I think, engaging with those consumers and saying, does this resonate with you? I think is so, so important. Otherwise, you're just throwing a ton of spaghetti at the wall and you're hoping that something hits. But I think, I came into this profession. I lost my dad when he was 46 years old. He was the father of 7 kids. The youngest was 9 when he passed away. So I came into the profession as an aftercare person. And so I always put myself back in the shoes of what that experience was like then. I go, okay, 25-year-old John, would he resonate with this message? Would he resonate with this marketing piece? Would he resonate with this text message? Would he resonate, and so it's been very natural for me. If that doesn't come natural for you or for anyone on your team, find somebody where it is intuitive for them to say, yeah, and to give the feedback. And you'll twinge if you're like, this feels like I'm, taking advantage of the family, or I'm pushing a product, or, I'm trying to upsell them in a way. Keep it natural, keep it human. When that happens, you'll win every time.
I'm just going to pipe in. I'm going to have the unpopular opinion on I agree 100% with John, keep it human. But also, I think inside of death care, we make the empathy side of it a much bigger deal than what the consumer expects. We're very, very sensitive inside. And I say this based off of, and if any of you follow John Maxwell, he always says when he gets ready to offend somebody, he's like, I'm John, I'm your friend. So I'm going to say this, I'm Ryan, I'm your friend. I'm not trying to step on toes and offend anybody, but at the end of the day, we take ourselves inside the profession far more serious than the consumer takes us. And there's a level of like just being humans and being a normal business. I'm not saying that we have to do things that cross the line. What I'm saying is I love whatever works and whatever gets the attention in a positive way. The most negative feedback we get from, we engage with over 7 million consumers a month through content. The most negative feedback we get is when there's a direct mail campaign dropped to a consumer who lost a loved one already and the funeral home's still sending them mail. Yet we continue to do those things. We don't worry about the negativity of that. So, we work with multiple direct-to-consumer brands in death care where the content that resonates the most with the consumer and gets the most positive feedback is the content that just speaks to right where they are, but has a level of humor and fun in it where it's just like a normal business marketing to them. There is a level of professionalism that has to go across that, but when we just act like a real business and we take part in trending things that are happening, the most positive feedback we see is when a funeral home jumps on some sort of trend that's happening where the people in the funeral home are real. And so I guess it's a long way to answer, like pony off of John. It's got to be humanized, and when we humanize it in a way that's real, the consumer is more receptive to different things that don't have to be just funeral-y content.
Very good, very good. I heard once, like, good marketing, memorable marketing makes you laugh, makes you cry, or makes you feel something, right? And like, I think that's something unique for funeral homes. You guys have got a great opportunity because just of the nature of the business to make somebody feel any one of those things. You know, if you saw the Subaru commercial where that aged dog goes on his last, like, road trip, well, I was about ready to cry on that one. We've got an offer from Ring Ring Marketing. I think we can get up on the screen here, so you can discover how the pull forward effect is impacting your revenue. Get your free copy of the all-new Making Your Phone Ring with Internet Marketing for Funeral Homes, 3rd edition, and learn tailored strategies to reverse the pull forward effect and attract more families today. So that should show up on the live stream, that CTA there. Okay, so over to John. And sorry, I see this question I sort of asked you already. So maybe you could take a different version or approach to this, or we could maybe see if there's any questions online. But what would be the first thing a funeral home should do to start implementing a CX, which customer experience strategy?
Yeah, I think we have talked about it, but I think to just expand upon that is figure out ways to get feedback. Feedback will help, that's data that will help drive your decision making. And so when I was thinking through even just Ryan's comments and keeping it human, there's no better thing to advertise with than the voice of that consumer, right? The power that exists in a review of an actual person that had an experience at your funeral home, to be able to amplify that in any way, shape, or form, I think is really, really huge. And so whatever mechanisms you are using to gather that feedback, I just think is so vitally important as a part of that whole consumer experience journey. Common ones that a lot of funeral homes that I work with, text messaging is huge because you actually have a transcript of it, right? So that's even better sometimes than just the word of mouth that you're like, I think people felt this, I don't really know. But you can go back and you can analyze that. I'm sure there will be a good AI discussion. You can consolidate all of that feedback. Help me understand what are the things that I need to work on. Literally, you can plug all of that into AI and it can filter out for you and say, boom, this is what you got to focus on. Knowledge is power, but you have to have a way of consolidating that and gathering that data so that you can then make the right decision. So text is awesome for that purpose. The reviews are huge, so whether that's on Google or other social platforms is awesome. Social listening and just engagement with your brand of like what's going on the social media channels, on Facebook, on Instagram, on your website, on the obituary pages, whatever. That again is transcribed content that you can then take and you can assess and say, what is the pulse of this that's there? Surveys are also huge, and I think continuing to adapt. There's a lot of opportunity in surveys, I think, in this space. To be able to do that, there's a lot of survey tools that exist through various partners, but I think surveying is huge, and surveying in multiple different ways, not just to get the pre-need lead or not just to get, whatever sale. Surveys for the sake of getting genuine, true, and authentic feedback is so, so crucial, and I think that should happen on those major milestones. After a pre-need appointment, how did the pre-need agent do? Did they, give you the value that that you needed? Did you get all your questions answered? Did you, those types of things. Same thing in an at-need situation, aftercare. Did you attend? If you're doing events, et cetera. There's so much opportunity to gather that feedback along that consumer journey. So that's what I would say to just amplify that discussion.
Awesome. And was there a call to action you would like to get out there? I don't have it on my agenda here that people could learn more about Elevia.
About Elevia?
Yeah.
Go to Elevia.com. We definitely are giving 30 days free. to anybody that watches this. In the 30 days free, we usually do a catch-up campaign with folks. If they have contacts that are in a case management system or whatnot, we can go back 6 months. Families, you can come, see what that experience is like. I always tell people it's a milk before meat situation. We can start with something basic like aftercare. Once you see the power of that, you can then amplify that through other journeys, and that's what Elevia is all about. So yeah, 30 days free for anyone that's watching this and wants to take advantage of that opportunity.
And what's the open rate on text messages these days?
Yeah, it still is sitting squarely at 50%, and it has been that way since we started. Well, open rate is 98, 99%, but response rate is 50% on our initial campaign, which is just mind-boggling when you think about it. And that's the same if it is direct cremation, if you're in rural America or metro America. It's been consistent for the last 6.5 years.
That's incredible. Okay, Ryan, one more question for you, which is how have the types of content and best practices for funeral homes on social media evolved over the past decade? What's performing well?
I don't know who wrote that question. It's a big one. This might go longer. No, I'm just kidding. I'll keep it short. I mean, when I got into death care in 2004, launched Connecting Directors 2007, like online and websites were just like starting to become part of the conversation. And when we launched Disrupt in 2011, the things that worked were just if a funeral home put content online, like literally just automating the obits to Facebook worked. And when I mean worked, it got attention, it got engagement. And that attention engagement potentially could be measured. Now, there weren't a lot of the tools in place to do that, but the consumer has evolved. These social platforms have evolved. Multi-channel marketing done the right way is still, it shouldn't just be an all or nothing, like we're only gonna do social. There needs to be other things in place with that funeral home, whether it's text message marketing, whether it's traditional means, whether it's television commercials. I mean, we've shot television commercials, ran them on TV, ran them on Facebook, where there's measurable results. But the thing that has superseded all of it from a content standpoint is it's no longer just we have a Facebook page and we're gonna put stuff there. Content for the sake of content doesn't work. And when I'll define work, work is there's a tangible, measurable result. Call volume is increasing, we're getting feedback, we're getting people that come in the funeral home that saw this, that mentioned it, someone stopping me in the grocery store, mentioning the content. There's actionable leads that have high conversion from a pre-need standpoint. There's at-need families that are discussing the content and we've engaged with the content. Like there's a tangible, measurable dollar for dollar return on what's being spent. So just having a Facebook page, listening to content from me or this panel, like there's a lot of things that you can watch and listen to this and just go, okay, I'm gonna implement that on my own and just go, I heard that I need to start texting families. So you're gonna give every family your personal cell phone number and you're just gonna start texting them. And then when you don't get the response, you're like, well, that guy was dumb. What's he talking about? Or I'm gonna get on Google and for $150 credit, I can run my own Google ads and you're gonna have people in Timbuktu calling you because they saw your ad because you don't necessarily know what you're doing in that, and there's companies that can help you with that. The same with me. I get people all the time that'll listen to a 2-hour CEU keynote somewhere and go, you know what, you really inspired us to go back, create a Facebook page. And my cousin who doesn't know anything about death care but is 20 and is on their phone all the time is doing our marketing for us. And they're like, but it's not working. And it's because just putting content online, it's not this field of dreams, magical, hey, we have a Facebook page, we put content there, now everybody's coming to our Facebook page, and that's gonna drive more business. So, the less is more, quality over quantity, actually having a strategy and a plan with the messaging around your content. And from a customer experience standpoint, you gotta put yourself on the other end of who's engaging with that content. And if you yourself aren't scrolling through Facebook, just reading, quote graphics and love a lot of generic things from the businesses that you engage with and follow, then why are we doing those things ourselves? And I think that's been the biggest shift over the last decade, is just the evolution that needs to happen with a funeral home being able to tell their story through an outlet that 75% of consumers over the age of 45 in the US engage with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I want to jump in what you were just talking about, Ryan, about producing content for the sake of producing content. That's not a really good idea. You got to have a plan, you got to have a strategy, and that starts with the audience. You got to know who you're talking to, what their interests are. So I'll just pull out a company out of thin air. Let's talk about Rosetta Stone for a second. We all know Rosetta Stone here. They sell language learning software. So what do you think Rosetta Stone does? They sit around at a table and they think about, okay, who are we talking to? People who want to learn foreign languages. Well, what kind of interests would they have? Maybe traveling to a foreign country, just they're lifelong learners. They're interested to learn about celebrities who speak, foreign languages, things like that. So that's what's going to guide your strategy, is about learning what their interests are. Then you come up with a content plan.
Yeah. 100%. And that improves customer experience.
Yeah.
All the way around. Happy. They're happy customers.
There's a call to action for Disrupt we can throw up on the screen. That's will lead you to disrupt.sucks, which is a cool domain name there. Are there any questions from online as we wrap this up that we should probably address?
Yeah, we can do a couple. Do you want me to grab a mic or just rephrase it?
Come on up here.
Come on, Eli.
Let's hope Eli has shoes on today. He does. The dogs are covered.
This is the question, Mike, so I'll give you this one.
Okay, so question number one, what additional tips does the panel have for changing the narrative of funeral homes to make people see the value in what we do?
Anybody want to go first?
I was the one, I think, that threw that out there earlier. To me, people don't know what they don't know. And so you have to find a way in which you can share that. And I think it goes back into kind of this testimonial and this experience thing. If you can amplify the good work that does happen and tell that story in a relatable way, then people will listen to it and it'll resonate with them. And especially because it's not just X, Y, and Z funeral home owner that's saying it to them, it's a family that's saying it to them. It's somebody that recently lost a loved one, of, I couldn't have done this without the help of X, Y, and Z funeral director, or I couldn't have done it without. When people read that, you're going to value funeral service, right? And so I just think that's the most important thing, is let real stories be told and let them speak for you, because you doing it on your own is going to feel like a very, marketing, thing where people are just, you're naturally going to be leery of marketing messages sometimes because we are getting so many of them. But when I hear an actual consumer that testifies of the product or the service or the experience, then that's where it's like, I will pay even extra for that service, right? I want a 5-star experience, especially as it relates to a funeral, than I would a 2.5-star experience where none of it was worth it, right? So let the people speak for you.
I would concur with that, but I also think there's a right way that the funeral home can tell their story. Because I also believe that if we don't control the narrative, then right now the narrative's being written in not favor of death care, right? So if funeral homes can the correct way tell that story where it doesn't feel like selling, it doesn't feel like marketing, it's just relationship building, it's, how they interact in the community and the things that they do in a very natural, organic way, that starts to show the narrative. A simple case is, I'm yet to talk with a funeral home that doesn't struggle with families that come in and go, we're just going to do direct cremation. We don't really need you to do anything. We'll do our own service. And then they leave, and the funeral home's like, well, shoot, all we did was cremate the body, and we gave back a black container, and that was it. My top line revenue is going down, which hurts my bottom line revenue. And so my question is, what are you doing for those families that come in and just want a direct cremation, and we'll do the service and things on our own at a later date. And when I ask a client that, they're like, well, nothing. We're just letting them walk out the door. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for a funeral home to showcase exactly what they would do for that family. And I said, what if you put together a DIY guide of, hey, here's all the things that you need to think about and plan when you're going to do this service on your own, and just go through every single, as complex as possible, of all the things that the funeral home would do if they were doing the service. And that, again, starts to show the narrative and the value of what the funeral home does for that additional, I don't know, $1,000, the hours of time that are spent to do that. And this client was like, oh my gosh, the amount of families that look at that and go, you'll do all this for $1,200? Yeah, fine, you do it. And I think that is part of telling the story. Like, we don't necessarily know what a funeral director does, and if we don't document the process of being a funeral director and show all the things that the funeral home is doing for the family. So when I say telling the story in a non-marketing way, I guess what I'm really saying is, like, just, we got to document what we're doing.
And I think I agree with you 100%, because there is so much value there. And that's where I think if you can do it also in the voice of the customer, where they're able to say, I had no idea what the funeral director was doing. They did this and this and this. Hearing that versus the funeral home telling you what they're doing. So it's the same thing, but just doing it in a slightly more creative way that is speaking to that customer inner voice, going, huh, okay, I need to do this, you know?
Well, I'm going to have to tell the story, what Ryan just mentioned, in a marketing way. What Ryan just described there was a lead magnet funnel. He's talking about creating a piece of content, a DIY guide of what the family can do, or what's being done. And you give away, you're going into the situation in this mindset of giving value in exchange for their information. It's like, you know, if you have any questions about this guide or you need any additional advice, give us a call, send us an email.
Yeah, I've noticed, you know, when you see someone present on a topic and you know that they're an expert in it and they tell you it's like they're up there trying to tell you everything they know and teach you how to do it. Right, Welton's a good example of this at Ring Ring, where he will get up there and he will show you everything you need to do to get your business listing set up right and all the things you need to do to, like, optimize your SEO. He'll tell you, like, everything you need to do, right? And you see that and you're like, yeah, I can do that. That's really easy. And then once you think about it, you're like, no, I'm going to have him do it. Because he's the expert, and he just showed me, even though he showed me how to do it, I'm going to have him do it anyway. I think that applies to funeral homes, like what Ryan said there. If you tell them all that you do and kind of how you do it, they're going to say, I don't want to do that. I would never do it for what you'll do it for. So that's excellent. Okay, Eli walked away, so I think we're done with questions. He's going to go write another rap song. Sounds like he needs to write a Disrupt Sucks rap.
It's in the pipeline.
Okay. All right, any final words, Ryan? How are we ending this thing?
Well, Curtis, thank you for moderating this panel. And I love this customer experience conversation, and John and I are going to do a one-on-one. We'll talk a little bit more about that and why the name change and that story as well. But we're going to transition into a one-on-one with Richard from Ring Ring real quick. You and me, Richard. Thank you. Thanks, man. Can you sign? Can you just sign what you?
Unfortunately, I can't. I need to take a crash course in ASL, American Sign Language.
That was a great panel, great information. I want to start this panel with this, because I get messages and texts of, hey, are you really going to interview a competitor? And Welton and I have had this conversation a lot. And so here's my take on it. I know Welton's take, I don't know necessarily how you feel, so I'm just going to address that right away.
Sure.
We probably refer 4 or 5 funeral homes a week to Ring Ring. I mean, we do some, there's overlap because we're marketing companies.
Right.
And marketing companies are going to have overlap, but like the lanes where we're most proficient are different lanes. We don't do anything with Google listings and Google ads and search and SEO, and you guys are the best in the game at that. And so whenever we have a client that asks about those things, I'm usually texting Welton or somebody on your team and passing them along. And so I don't know how you feel about it. We don't have to talk about it, but that's how I feel about it, and the messages that I get of like, well, how do you sit on a panel with a competitor or interview a competitor? I don't put us in this competitor category.
Well, I mean, I refer to you as a friend of me.
Okay, a friend of me. I like it.
No, you're good, Ryan. I think what it is, for the average funeral homeowner, they're confused about digital marketing.
Yeah.
Just the feedback I've received is I think they see Disrupt sometimes as a social media company. Yeah. That's kind of the feedback I've gotten. But we do pretty much everything from Google. For the at-need side and the pre-need side of the business. So that's our bread and butter is at-need, is getting your reputation, number one, getting stellar reviews, so you establish yourself as the go-to funeral home in your community. And number two, because if you're found and if you're visible, but you have subpar reviews, no one's going to want to do business with you.
That's right. That's
yeah.
right.
So you've got to have good reviews, number one. Number two, you've got to be found. And number three, once you're found and families are going to your website, you got to have a way to convert them. So you've got companies here like Tukios and Tribute Tech that have websites that convert.
Yeah. So, one, thank you for being a featured sponsor of the Funeral Unconference. Ring Ring was on the very first Funeral Unconference 4 years ago, where we threw it together in 10 days, and it was awesome. So, longtime friends as well. You and I just golfed together a couple months ago in Las
awesome.
Vegas, which was great. So, tell me, Richard, what's the value of ranking first on Google, and break down the difference between sponsored and then organic, because I think sometimes there's confusion there. And what's the value of both?
I mean, the value is if you're visible, you have an opportunity. You need as many opportunities as possible to serve families. So our favorite strategy is the free strategy, is getting placement in the Google Map app. And that is your local listing. You got to have a optimized Google business profile. You got to have your hours set to 24 hours. I just checked this morning. I did a search for cremation near me, and there are funeral homes that still have their business hours set to not 24 hours. So what do you think is going to happen in that situation when a family at 2 a.m. experiences death and they call your firm? They see you're closed.
Yeah, they're not going to.
They're not going to call your firm. No. Yeah. So simple things like that you can make adjustments to really move the needle. But local listing is one of our favorites because it's free traffic. And what you have to do, there's some elements that you need to have in place to make sure that you rank there. Number one, NAP, name, address, phone number, has to be the same across all directory listings. Number two is reviews is a big factor in getting placed there. Yeah.
I like it. Okay. So local search, number one. From an organic perspective, ranking, okay, so maybe the map doesn't come up, or I don't see it on the map, or someone scrolls past the map right to organic. What are some things funeral homes can do to help with organic?
Content, and we talked about that briefly here. You got to produce content that addresses what families are looking for. You got to have city pages that tells about your products and services in those cities that you serve, and you've got to have content that showcases your expertise.
Okay, so when you say content, like blogs, and okay, blog content, is that?
Yeah, blog content.
Okay. Yeah. Do obituaries count as content?
I would say no. It is content, but it's content that's not going to rank for the services that you're trying to attract.
Okay.
I mean, for the services that you're promoting, if no one's going to look for an obituary for an at-need service. The keywords that are being used are funeral home near me, cremation near me. You don't want your obituary showing up. It's not going to show up.
That's good. And I want to talk about that because I think that there's a misconception in conversation that because I'm updating my website every day, it's getting recrawled and obits count as content. And unless someone's specifically searching for that obit, they're not
Correct.
finding that funeral home organically if they're just searching for funeral homes.
Yeah, if they're searching for obit, they're probably finding John's site, legacy.com, but it's not content.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. I like it. So when you say content, outside of blogs, what are other things that funeral homes should be doing from content? I think we've established reviews for sure are insanely important. What else? Applicable things?
Like your about page, who you are, what you do, what makes you different than the competitor down the street. I mean, your unique value proposition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So telling that story, I mean, there's so many. I mean, I'm sure you guys do the same thing. You get a lead from a funeral home, and you immediately go on their website. You try to find the staff page. Like
Exactly.
having those things filled out is important.
Yes.
Love it. Love it. Okay. What are some of the other things that Ring Ring does? Do you help funeral homes get reviews? Are you reaching out to families for them?
Yeah, that's low-hanging fruit. We built a tool internally that helps, ask for reviews, manage the review process, gives the funeral home owner opportunities to reply to reviews, whether good or bad.
What is the value in a arrangement or a follow-up with the family, just verbally asking them for a review? Like the conversion on that.
Doing it verbally?
Yeah, versus just some random outreach survey or something like that.
Well, it's personalization. So when you do a personal outreach like that, I mean, it's, the relationship building. Yeah.
I like that. So I mean, a real life example that I use with funeral homes, like how do we get people to leave us a Google review or a positive Facebook review? And I think like I bought a car, and the salesperson texted me after and said, "Hey, will you leave me a positive Google review on our company page on Google?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, no problem, absolutely, great experience." But life happened, right? I'm busy throughout the day, and I didn't do it. He followed up with me a month later and said, "Hey, I noticed you didn't leave that review. Could you leave that review?" And then gave me the link. And all I had to do was click the link in that moment in 5 stars, type it in real quick, and it was done. When we talk about customer experience on the last panel, like actually providing some of those things where the consumer now doesn't have to go search to try to find it, just sending, what's the value in that?
You have to make it super simple. I mean, doing things online in of itself it can be confusing. So with a tool like that, you just make it click easy. That's the philosophy, is make it as easy as possible for a family to leave a review. And if they don't leave one when you ask them through a text message or an email or whatever communication method, you have to find a balance between, reminding and becoming an annoyance.
Okay. All right, last question. When should a funeral home reach out to you? Should they go to Google and figure out that they're ranking like 12th on the page and on the second page, or like when should they reach out?
Do what I did this morning. If you're serving families with traditional burial and cremation, look up the word funeral home near me and look up the keywords cremation near me. If you're not showing up on the first page, you're not visible.
Love it. Richard, thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, we're keeping this train moving today. And so we've got one more panel before we break. So Richard, I'm gonna have you transition with, we're gonna move on to our travel panel with Dave from Inman and Chris from Sepio Guard. Come on up. Yes.
Now, Dave, that was a good burger.
That was a good burger. That was a good burger. Again, live stream, you know what? I'll go down here and then you guys can, I don't know. Ashlyn, where do you want us to go? In the middle?
You in the middle?
Me in the middle okay, let's do that. Which mic should I be using? Does it matter? All right. We'll put this down here. Sit down, Chris. You're being weird. No, I'm just kidding. Look, okay, so couple things before we start this panel. You guys missed it on the live stream. Probably the best grill master in deathcare. Can we say that?
I'm totally humbled, but yeah, thank you. It's
Maybe it was
it's
just
something I
good burger.
practice on the weekend a lot. So
Maybe it had nothing to do with you. It was just good burger. I don't
yeah,
know.
well, you know, I had a supporting cast too.
You
And
did.
Lori there
Your
and
team was
my wife.
fantastic. Lori and your wife, Cheryl, amazing. Thank you again for that.
You're quite welcome.
We've got the #1 cook in deathcare, and then we've got the #1 sock in deathcare. So let's just get the sock thing out of the way because it's cool and it's been fun. But you reached out last year, right after the unconference, and said, hey, if you do this next year, we need to create a limited edition, unconference branded Sepio sock.
Yes. Hey, I have 2 questions real quick.
Yeah.
Before we jump into that. I've been sitting here for 2 days now, and I've been fascinated with your microphone holding skills.
Yeah?
So, am I supposed to rest it on my chin like this?
I don't have any idea.
This
To
is-
me, it keeps me from wanting to go like this, and then I know
Feels
that
good.
I'm not moving it away.
Okay.
Like, after
Can I do it too?
You
Can I-
can, you
Okay.
can. And it makes a cool little mark right there. That's why I have
All
facial
right.
hair, so you
Sweet. Okay.
can't see it.
Kind of holds it in
Yeah.
place.
I like-
Okay, that
I
was
like
question
that.
1. You had 2.
And then I don't know how to do this. Am I supposed to be looking at the camera?
You know,
or am I looking
don't
at you?
think we figured that part
Okay.
out yet either.
All right.
To me, it's weird asking a question and then looking at the camera to talk to you. So,
I'm going to look at you guys.
all right, that's cool.
Okay.
And the live stream will figure it out. Like, they're here
All right.
for it. They're here for it. They should have been in
Okay,
the room.
all right. Those are dumb questions, but
They're fine.
I've been
Let's talk about
wondering
the
all
socks.
last 2 days.
I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then actually third, are you rocking these right now?
Bro, they match.
Look at how that ties in look at that.
Of course. I am
Green
rocking the
shoes,
socks.
green hat. That looks pretty
It was
good.
a plan. This was a plan.
Yeah, so the socks, we're not a sock company. I don't know what else to say about it. They're awesome socks.
It makes no sense for what you do.
But, you know, it's been really fun. We just happen to have this connection that makes awesome socks, and we rolled with it at our second convention ever.
Okay.
And, you know, it's been about 5 years now of socks. And so now we have some collaborations going with some of the biggest companies in the profession. It's been a lot of fun. So we're just going to ride that wave. We love it.
Okay. I think between Inman and Sepio, the giveaways that you guys are doing are some of the most applicable like giveaways from a functional standpoint. Like, I wear socks every day and I travel a ton. So we're gonna put the links up throughout this. You can get a free pair of Sepio socks, and they'll throw the link in there and we'll talk about it again.
It's free for the first 250.
So you better jump on it because there's
all we got.
over 850 people registered for the live stream. And then Inman is giving away a free luggage scale.
Yeah, let me get in position here. Okay.
What?
I'm getting in the right position. Am I good?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is it.
So, and yes,
Right there.
we have a luggage scale.
Yes.
And, you know, it's not the scale that, you know, is part of the shipping process.
That's right.
So it's not that big, but it's for
It's a
your luggage
handheld.
that goes up to the weight of, you know, over 50 pounds, making sure you don't have to pay an additional fee on the
I
airplane.
love it.
So there you
Saving money. The luggage scales are one of the most undervalued pieces of travel, I think. I have one in my bag. It'll now be an Inman one because the one off Amazon breaks all the time, right as you're ready to leave. And you
Yeah,
need to-
that's right. And you know, and this is, if you go sport fishing, this is also good. You could hang your catch on there, like if you catch a big mai or something like that, you can hang it on there and you can tell how much your fish
I
was.
love it.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, now we're going to get into the panel, and I've got questions for both of you, and I'm not prepped for this. I was really excited about luggage scales and socks. So while I'm pulling the questions up, Dave, we'll start with you, introduction, and then we'll move to Chris for an introduction.
All right, Dave McComb. I am a fourth generation funeral director. Been a funeral director for 38 years. I was president of our family funeral home for 20 of it. Our pre-need company in Fort Wayne was very successful. We had 11 people selling pre-need, and for a market of 300,000, we were pulling $6 to $7 million out each year. For the last number of years, we had the company. Our firm served 1,700 families. The last year we were in business. Served as a owner of a third-party marketing company. We had 27, 28 funeral homes in it. And I love this business, and I love contact management. We're on our 4th generation of our contact management software. We first started back in 1986, believe it or not, with a program called Telemagic. That's back where you have DOS and the green print on the screen. That was us. We found out it's not a good idea to spell the word Fort Wayne 17 different ways, FT Wayne, FORT Wayne, when you do reports, because then they don't work. So that was a very valuable lesson. But anyways, I want to thank Ryan for the great job you've done in putting this together, and your girls are just delightful. So your wife is wonderful for coordinating all this. And my wife Cheryl and Lori, they helped do all the logistics on our little cooking escapade yesterday, which I think turned out very well. Because I'm looking at Ryan going, is it time yet? Is it not time? Is it time? So anyways, we got it done. We were out there for a little bit of a late lunch. But
having a loosey-goosey schedule doesn't work for the person that has to cook. Apologize.
No, that's quite all right. Hey, that's funeral service, though.
That is.
Yeah, I mean, you have to adjust to the family. So, we are adjusting to you.
There you go.
So that's a good thing.
I love it. Chris?
Yeah, thank you. Chris Johnson, co-founder and CEO of Sepio Guard. So co-founder, my business partner, my co-founder, Bryce Beach, is the other one. He's awesome. If you don't know him, get to know him. But yeah, started the company basically we launched in 2019. And it's been awesome. I come from the pre-need space, started in 2010, and just had an incredible experience. Saw a lot of growth, served a lot of families, and basically, we may get into it, but the whole premise behind starting the company was to create something from the ground up, starting from scratch, based on what we wish it would have felt like in selling a product like this in our days in pre-need. So that's kind of how it all happened. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you both for being on the panel. I mean, one of the beautiful things, again, I'll reiterate what I said yesterday about having the unconference and the way we set it up is like-minded companies on panels and doing the same things, having conversations that are valuable. And so this is not a question that I plan to ask either of you, but can we just, what is travel assurance? Because we hear travel insurance, and that's not what it is. It's travel assurance, and I don't know if there's two definitions, but what is travel assurance?
It's not insurance. That's for sure.
Right.
We avoid, the insurance terms because insurance is a very highly regulated field. And but anyways, it is a plan in which you purchase in advance of death, and there are some rules to it. Typically, it has to do from where you die away from home. If it's typically more than 75 miles, some plans are 100 miles from other companies. But the thing is that you pay a one-time fee, and then if you die outside of that range, then you're brought back. And in the process of being brought back, you're picked up by somebody that is a recognized service provider with a good rating. And then they transport your body from the place of death to where it's going to be embalmed. And then the body is embalmed by somebody that has to follow a list of standards, not just anybody that says that they're an embalmer. And after they're embalmed, they're placed in a shipping container. Typically, it's cardboard or corrugated, and then the body is then tendered to the airport. And then our sister company, Eagles Wings Air, is involved in logistics of properly getting the body back home, protecting against the fact that there's anything that happens along the way.
Anything to add to that?
That's awesome. Good job.
That's travel
Thank you.
assurance. Okay, all right. Well, Chris, I'll start with you only because I don't like even numbers. I only like odd numbers, and in my mind, right equals even and left equals odd. So I'll start on the left side of me. What is the main benefit for the funeral home in offering a plan like yours or travel insurance, period?
Okay, that's a good question.
I know, you wrote it, I think.
I hope I wrote that one. So let me, I guess I'll say I'll focus on like the two top, even though you asked for one. I think first and foremost, one thing that's overlooked with a plan like this is the fact that, you know, it's most commonly purchased during the pre-need process, right? As a matter of fact, like the conversation with me and our company could fit in nicely with pre-need panel as well, because it needs to be sold in advance before someone passes away, right? Like as Dave was talking about. So if you get into the mind of the client family that's making pre-arrangements, they're planning out an experience. And this is the background that I came from, right? And it's the pre-need counselor's job, it's the funeral home's job to connect with that family and to really put together an experience that they fully intend to have in the future. Now, no doubt that experience they're trying to plan out is supposed to be with the funeral home that pre-need agent represents, right? That's the whole intent of making pre-arrangements, and they're trying to provide this awesome experience for those left behind. And it's a beautiful thing, right? So I think one of the main benefits in providing the client families with a plan like the both of ours is that it goes back to the principle of it. Like, this fits in line perfectly with the pre-need process, so that no matter where they die, we're going to bring them back to that funeral home so that the funeral home can serve the family in the way in which they always intended to serve the family, and in the way in which the family intended to be served. Okay, so, you know, that's number one, is that this further guarantees that the funeral home will be able to serve that client family and create this awesome experience for the family the way that it was always intended to be, right? So you need to be talking to client families about a plan like this. And number two, from what we see from our side of it for sure, is when you're talking about pre-need and you have an awesome pre-need counselor or a pre-need team, right? A plan like ours is probably the best retention tool to retain a good pre-need agent than anything else, right? The number one reason why a pre-need person would leave the profession is not because they don't like helping families. I think everybody can wrap their mind around that. It's financially, it's hard to make ends meet sometimes, right? And so when you can be taught on how to include a plan like this into your pre-need process, something that makes perfect sense to every client family, and you can start doing this on a regular basis, the earning potential is great for that pre-need counselor. So they stick around, because nothing's worse than losing a good pre-need person. So those are the two things.
Love it. And Dave, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think those were all good comments, very realistic comments. There's a couple states where we have a number of the people that represent Travel Plan by Inman, where they make as much money selling travel plans as they do selling pre-need. So if you're in a market where there's a lot of direct cremation and you're good at selling travel plans, you're going to do probably just about as well. And so your retention's going to be better. That's something you got to think about today, because it's really difficult to find good pre-need people. It's difficult to find good funeral directors, and I would suggest to join in.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll stick with you real quick, Dave. What makes your travel plan unique to funeral service?
Well, every travel plan has their own details. A lot of them are typically the same. What's behind the scenes sometimes, I believe, matters. I've been a funeral director for 38 years. I understand the industry very well. I understand it from the at-need side. I understand it from the pre-need side. And we have a network of 750 or more service providers around the United States. And those service providers do the aforementioned things. They pick people up from where they pass away, and they transport them, and we are in control of that process. That process is contractual with all these folks that are out there representing us. If they don't perform, they don't work for us. So it's just not a matter of picking somebody out of the red book. We know who we're talking to when we do it. And then finally, it was a long search. When I bought Inman Shipping, they had a travel plan. It was called the Omega Plan. It would be much like calling life insurance death insurance, so we changed the name of it from the Omega Plan to the Travel Plan by Inman, much more positive thing on it. And then I also wanted to find a good way to back up the liability of having these on the books. You know, you don't want to turn to the end of your career and have tens of thousands of these plans out there and go, hey, what happens if something catastrophic happens? You know, you want to make sure that your landing gear works if there's an emergency, and we're set up for that. So we have what's called clip insurance, and that backs up every individual plan that we have on the books. So in case our company happens to vanish, the people that are the end user of these travel plans are covered.
Anything you want to add?
I guess just the original question is kind of what's unique to us. Our socks, man.
Right, the socks.
No.
The socks.
So in reality, we do things a little different, you know, just from our perspective, and again, creating the company, we really, really, really want to focus on the overall experience, you know, and so, you know, instead of getting into some of the details, I think the feedback that our clients give to us, and I'm talking like funeral homes and pre-need companies, consolidators, cemeteries, whatever it is, the main feedback I think is it's just we have a different outlook, a fresh take on things, and we're very proud of the fact that we integrate technology. We just lead with overall customer experience at the forefront. And again, we built this from the ground up based on the way that we wished it was working, you know, but wasn't. So I think we focus mostly on the front end, right? Because if you're not serving more families, if you're not selling more memberships, you never get to help anybody on the back end. And so for example, we didn't want to create an at-need shipping company when we started the company, because that's a whole nother business model that's super, super important, right? But we wanted to just focus on what we did best in creating that whole experience for the funeral home, the pre-need counselor. We still get to control all the communication and how this exactly works, but we use National Mortuary Shipping and Cremation out of Cleveland to really do the vetting process of the funeral homes and do some of the heavy lifting, so we can focus on that overall experience with the client family and the funeral home. And you know, I guess on top of that, it's just no secret we're newer in the space, right? Even though I started in 2010 in the profession, we're only about like 6 years into this, you know, and so I think we just have like a fresh look. We're like you know, we're a little younger, and I'm getting old, but our team's a little younger, and we look at things a little differently, and so far so good. It's been incredible.
All right, I'm going to stick with the experience side of things. You work with thousands of agents, pre-need agents across the country. How do you stay connected to those agents to make sure that you're training properly and providing the best service to those agents to be able to sell your product?
Man, so this question is something that from the pre-need days that I would personally wrestle with so much, because as you grow, and we've had tremendous growth, we're super grateful for it, and one of the challenges, right, in a sales organization and growing business is having that face-to-face contact with the pre-need agents and the funeral homes and things. And if I could just take a little step back here. Follow along with me. So, like in the pre-need days, for example, it seemed like you have like these, you have these territories that you manage, right? And so I was like just super lucky to be in a situation. We grew our pre-need book of business from about 15 million to, almost 60 million. And it happened, over the course of about 8 years. It was great growth, right? Well, what we kept finding is like when you have this incredible field manager, this person representing that pre-need company that can be with the people face to face, business takes off, right? But the hard part is scaling that type of a thing. So what do you got to do? Just hire 1 million people, and so for us, face to face is super, super important. We have, depending on the size of the group, we're there face to face as much as possible. We're on Zoom meetings all the time, but the secret sauce is through technology. Right? It just so happens that our plan is like the easiest thing in the world to sell to a client family and to provide to a client family. So all that really is required is like just constant touch points, right? So for example, from day one, we set out to create a mobile app because everybody has a cell phone, right? And so that's the main way that we communicate with all of our thousands of sales agents out there and funeral home partners and things is through our mobile app, right? Like I was just sitting here next to a buddy and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I have 2 push notifications on my phone from our app, and it's a contest that we're running right now, like some reminders and some fun videos and things like that. And so technology is the way to create this awesome experience for all of our sales agents, even so we can totally scale that and everybody can still have an experience in our relationship with us. Hopefully that makes sense.
Anything you want to add to?
No, I agree. The technology piece of this is really important. It's good for the people that are out there that are selling the product to have immediate feedback and reporting. Real-time reporting, so you can compare yourself to the people in your peer group, see how you're doing, if that's what you want to do. Some places don't want to do that, so you don't have to do that. So, if you have a CRM system, those things are built into it. Some people don't want redundant systems. Sometimes it's kind of nice to have. It just kind of depends on your personality, and how you want to fill the market.
Love it. And I'm going to stick there for a second on, like, this is really applicable, and I think creates good conversation. What are some of the best ways to offer the travel plan?
Obviously, face-to-face with the family is the best way, but I'll get into another way in just a minute. But I'll make it real simple, too. The easiest sell for a travel plan is after you fill out the statement of funeral goods and services, have it built into the statement of funeral goods and services, not written in as an afterthought. Have it built in there, and it needs to say, if the death occurred today, local death, $6,500. Death anywhere in the world, $7,000. Which would you like? And let them make the choice. It's a 12-second sale, and it works.
That's good. That's easy. Okay. Anything you want to pop in on that one?
Yeah, I mean, Dave's exactly right. It needs to be like automatic, built in. I think the timing in which you bring it up is crucial, and there's some kind of do's and don'ts. We find, without getting too into the details here, we find that it's more about what not to say than it is what to say. The client family in this day and age, they, whether you know it or not, they already expect that something like this should be a part of their plan. They really do. Like if you were to talk to a client family and say, hey, thanks for making your arrangements with me. And I'm just curious, like if you were to die, 3 states away, what do you think's going to happen? They would say something like, well, what do you mean? I just made pre-arrangements with you. Aren't you going to help me out? And then they'd be like, well, no, you don't have a plan like this or whatever. So anyways, not making it a huge deal is what we preach over and over and over again. There's some specific verbiage. There's some specific timing. We don't like it to feel like an add-on, like when you get to, has anybody, let's show of hands in the room, the experience we like to use is like, have you ever bought a car at a dealership before? Yes. Is it awesome or is it terrible?
No, terrible.
Okay. So you're like, okay, hey, luckily, so I'll tell you, this was kind of fun because we finally graduated from the minivan stage.
Let's go.
Yeah, 4 kids. Now like
Sprinter van.
We're not. No, probably should have. So now we're not worried about them just nailing cars with the door. They're a little older, so we can have like big boy doors, So we graduated an SUV, and we decided to go purchase a new car. And here's the deal. I'm a Scrooge. Like, I don't want to spend more money on things. So we sit down with the sales agent, like at the dealership, and he was a really nice guy, especially at first, right? And you guys all know this situation, right? So you're sitting down with the car salesperson, and you start to negotiate on the price, right? And if you're like me, like it didn't make sense for me just to drop thousands of dollars all at once. I was gonna spread out the cost, okay? I felt like that was the right thing to do. But in my mind, going into the dealership, I like pictured I had X amount of dollars that I absolutely would not go above, right? It's like my hard no. Well, real soon into the conversation, it's already $150 more than that number. And I'm feeling really, really beat up, right? And it's back and forth, and he's like, let me go talk to my manager. Even though he doesn't talk to the manager, I think he just goes to the restroom and comes back. Yeah.
Drink, yeah.
And he's probably joking about, oh, these guys are totally going to buy, right? And it's this whole song and dance, right? And I finally, basically, you get so frustrated. You're like, okay, if I say yes to this price, can we just stop this? Right? Can I just sign this paperwork and get out of here? Because I'm already feeling beat up, right? It's more than I wanted to spend. But I need this thing, okay? You see where I'm going with this, with making prearrangements, right? Well, here's the question to everybody. Do you sign paperwork with that salesperson when you want to get out of there? What happens next?
Never want to go back.
Well, who do you actually have to go sign the paperwork with?
Finance director.
Finance guy, finance manager. What does the finance manager do?
You get a dinging tire package.
Oh, yeah. Here it comes. Gap protection, extended warranty, roadside service, roof rack, dent, whatever, lipstick, I don't know, everything. So they're throwing all this stuff at you, right? Now, a lot of those things we should probably buy, because they're actually good things. But if you're like me, you feel so beat up by the whole process that you just want to say no and get out of there. So this last time, I started laughing. So I'm like, we seriously talk about this all the time in my company. We talk about this all the time with all of our sales agents. Like, don't try to upsell at the very end, right? And he just kind of rolled his eyes, didn't say a word to me because I shut him down, didn't say a word. And then sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here. And it was a record time this time, right? But we always say, don't be the finance manager of your client families. Don't hit them with it at the very end. It needs to be talked about at the right place in the present, the exact right place. And nobody will say no to it if it's tough. So we always say, like, don't be the car finance manager. Connect with the family. They already expect like this should be in their plan. You just have to know how to present it. That was a long one. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. So I want to make sure that we have the link for the Inman luggage scales. Just mailing those out. You're going to be sending them all over the world. Okay. And the Sepio socks, limited edition. Only 250 people are going to get a free pair, so like get your hands on them.
I don't know if you noticed this, but the shape of the tag.
Yeah.
See that? It's like the old school coffin. call this the coffin cut. So you guys obviously won't call them coffins anymore, but this one, old school coffin.
You know, there's a lot more that goes into collabing on a sock. Like, we had multiple phone calls about the tag, the colors. We, had a phone call with Curtis to make sure that the Pantones of the sock were going to be the right colors, and Tukios is really particular about the Pantones that are used and the right gradients, and I mean everything's about image with them. So,
and we may or may not may not be having a Tukios sock made.
Oh.
Potentially. So
okay.
I don't know.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you both for being a part of the travel panel.
It was good.
And Dave, don't go anywhere, because you and I are going to do a one-on-one real quick before we go to break. So, Chris, thank you for the socks. Like, I do wear Sepio socks a lot, and actually I posted a video a couple weeks ago at Memorial Day. I had a biking accident. I had to get stitches right on my heel, and I needed thick socks that were comfortable, that had extra padding. And so I did do a video, and I sent you a text. I'm like, dude, I'm so glad I traveled with the Sepio socks, because I had stitches and I needed something that.
I'm glad we could be there for you.
Yeah.
There's another thing. Just lastly, I want to get some feedback. So my wife, she's actually here today.
Shout out to wifey. Woo woo.
It's our 17th wedding anniversary on Sunday.
Hey.
We made it. So she wakes up one morning, and so unfortunately, this is not the funny part, but unfortunately her dad did pass away. So over the holidays, right? And he was the best. But anyways, leading up to the service, right? My wife wakes up and she's like, "I'm so mad at you, so mad at you." And you know that if you guys are married, you have a spouse, they often wake up and they'd had a dream. They have a dream.
No idea what you're talking about.
Okay, they have a dream and they're still mad. So my wife, Tiffany, wakes up and she says, "I'm so mad at you." I'm like, "Okay, what was it this time in your dream, right?" And she's like, "Well, it was my dad's service. And during the visitation, all I could think about was putting my socks on her dad in the casket." And I was like, in her dream, I was saying, film me. Look, Sepio socks. You'll love them till the day you die.
It's messed up, bro.
It was totally messed up. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's genius. So you'll have to kick that around. I don't know if that's going too far to say, the tagline, "You'll love them till the day you die."
No,
I don't know.
I'm all about
That's it. That's all I got.
So, yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Dave. Okay, so if you haven't watched, you need to go to YouTube and you need to search Talks with Dave, because one of the fun things that you and I do at least once a quarter, maybe a little bit more. We've done.
It's about 5-6 times a year.
Yeah, we do Talks with Dave, and here's why we do Talks with Dave. When I got into deathcare, there's certain names that you learn of people that have a lot of wisdom. They've been around the profession. They've built successful businesses. You were one of those names that, was on the list of, these are the people that you have to know. And so to be able to do this now is really cool for me, because we've developed a friendship over the last decade. I think the first time I met you in person, I came to Fort Wayne with Eagles Wings Air.
That's right.
Brought me up.
And Frank, yeah.
Yeah, and I stayed in one of your places, and you put me up, and the whole 5-star treatment, and got to go to the funeral home and all the things. So
yeah, we had a place where my grandmother used to live. It was a very modern house, in a very old edition.
Yeah.
So we made it like an executive living suite.
It was cool.
And it had, conference room table. It had good electronics, good Wi-Fi, and all that stuff. And so anyways, we put out-of-town guests there all the time. We could, have. There's probably a number of people in this room who have been there. There's one right there that's been in the room as well.
That's cool.
So-
Like here's the thing that you want to know what like really got me, like being there, was the extra touch. And I was talking with Curtis last night. He was telling me about a book about just like hospitality and going above and beyond. And Frank had asked me my favorite water, and like I love Fiji water. And so when I got there, the fridge was full of Fiji water, which was cool.
Yeah.
Nice touch.
That's good. Thanks.
So yeah, I don't know. That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
So this friendship has been obviously growing, but talks with Dave, talks with Dave, like we don't really have a strategy around it. There's not a plan. It's I value what you see happening in death care because you have a different perspective than most, because you've built a funeral home and grown a funeral home, but also been on the supplier side, which I'm on. I'm not a funeral director. I've never owned a funeral home. I've never worked in a funeral home. I've never embalmed a body, none of that. So you have, I can learn a lot from you because you see it from the funeral director's perspective, but you also understand it from the supplier side. So I love conversations with you, but give us a little bit of history of you in death care. You've done a lot of different things.
Well, you brought up a couple of really interesting points. Funeral service is definitely in the soul. And I love funeral service. I love my colleagues in funeral service, and after I sold the company, McComb and Sons, in 2016, I knew I could not go fishing and golfing every day. And then, to do that, then you'd have to leave all these great people that are sitting around here, and I'm not interested to do that. I call the people sitting around here my funeral fam. This is my funeral fam. I have my family in Fort Wayne, my friends there, and you have friends other places, but this is my funeral fam, and these are a bunch of really sharp people here you put together, and very honored to be part of this. But so I don't forget this, I want to talk a little bit about funeral service and what's going on today in funeral service. So if you know the difference between grief and mourning, you know why there's funerals. And then I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you know the difference between grief and mourning?
I think mourning is in the moment. Grief lasts a lot longer. I don't know.
Well, that's
Terrible
kind of
answer,
right.
probably.
But so
Thanks for doing that to me,
sure.
by the way. Yeah.
So people that have a catastrophic death, they lose their spouse unexpectedly, they lose a child, they have something really bad happen, they get divorced. That's a grievous situation. It hurts in your heart and it hurts in your stomach. So grief is internal, okay? And then this thing called telling the death story. Have you ever been around an older person that wants to tell you the story about their spouse dying 50 times, 60 times, and you hear it again? That is mourning. And what they're doing is very healthy. To repeat the death story is very healthy. Crying, that is mourning. That is the most common, the most evident form of mourning. Other people get into exercising. That's kind of mourning too. So in other countries, they even have these things called, they're leather straps, and they hit themselves, and it's called keening. That's mourning. So what the funeral director's real job is, and if you understand this, you can apply this to marketing, is to convert grief into mourning. That's what's taking what's inside and taking it outside. And has anybody ever been to a military funeral before? I'm sure everybody has. Guess what they play at the end of the military funeral? Taps. How many times have you seen people cry at the end of when they're doing taps? I would be one of them. And so that is our job, to convert grief into mourning. And if we can express that to those that we serve, we are going to do better. This is not just, hey man, I got the lowest price, in the race to the bottom. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in seeing funerals go that way. We spend our lives on the phone, the screens, and so forth, and that's high tech, and it's digital marketing. But you know what? I think high touch is even better. So if you can come in face-to-face contact with people, I think that's the best way to do it. we were talking a little earlier today, and I think the recommendation from a friend at a dinner for 4 about which funeral home to use is more powerful than digital marketing. It's more powerful than anything. But yes, you have to get to them first.
Yes.
But that is the most powerful.
Yeah. Well, let's stay on this thread. One of the last talks with Dave that you and I recorded, you had just experienced a death, or you were at the funeral for somebody, and I think what you told me was someone came through receiving line, and we always say, "I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for your loss," and those things. And someone had said to you, "It really sucks to lose somebody," and you're like, "That was it."
It was it. That was it. It was. Her name is Rhonda, and Rhonda's a good friend of my wife and mine. And she came through the line and looked me square in the eyes, and she goes, "It sucks to lose your dad." Yeah. And you know what? That one just hit me. Yeah. And it was perfect. It was just perfect that she said that. You know, "I'm sorry for your loss." Some people take that wrong. It's like, I didn't lose him. I know where he is. You know, so maybe to rethink that and say, "You have my condolences." Or how about just say, "I love you." And just say, "Hey, I'm here for you. If there's anything you need, give them a hug, touch their hand." You know, there's a lot of parts of our society that we're leaving behind that are important that have been replaced with technology. I think technology's good.
It is, but I think
I love to spend on technology. People think I probably spend too much money on technology. I've lost a lot of money in technology.
That's doable. Very easy to do as well. Yeah. Well, but I love that conversation because it goes really back to what we were talking about on the marketing panel of that customer experience and meeting the consumer where they're at. And sometimes just "it really sucks" means a whole lot more because, somebody gets me. Like you're listening, you understand it does suck. So thanks for sharing that. So, I mean, out of all the things that you've done in death care, being a funeral director, Inman shipping, technology company, travel plan, like what is the thing that has gotten you the most excited?
Travel plan right now is exciting, and one of the reasons why is because if you know what's happened to the average value of a funeral, you go back 11, 12 years. I don't know if Bob is here, but Bob's company, Johnson Consulting Group, produces this report. And if you go back like 11 years.
Throw the link for that report in there. We got a link to that report.
And put the report up. And this is, I kind of geek out on this stuff because I like to know what's going on in the industry because, it affects what we do. But Bob and Jake, they put out this report, and it showed over the last 11 or 12 years that the average funeral value has not gone up. And guess what? Labor costs have gone up. Our prices of our caskets have gone up. So one great way to supplement what's going on is selling a travel plan. It produces a nice piece of revenue for you. And if you're selling 100 pre-arrangements per year and you're making the commissions on those, it could be $20,000 easily to you and your firm. If you don't want to add it back to your firm, it takes you on a heck of a nice vacation. But to pass that up and let somebody else do it, when the consumer is expecting it from you is not good. And you should be doing travel plans and offering them, because if they found out later that this is available and they had a death out of town and it was 10 grand, they're going to go, "Hey, why didn't you tell me about this?"
Yeah. Well, I have a ton of respect for you. We've talked about that, but what's the biggest change, and we'll close with this, what's the biggest change that you've seen in your tenure in death care that's just the most noticeable to you?
It is the de-ritualization of America. We used to be very well known for ritual. Ritual about even sitting around the dinner table. Ritual of going to church. I don't know about in your communities, but in our community, the pews are emptying out. There's not as many people in the pews as there used to be. And guess what? There's not as many people at visitations anymore. I knew at the start of the guest book signature, this is no offense to you, John, but at the start of the guest book signature on the obituary was going to be the downturn and people showing up at the funeral because they signed that guest book and they think they've done their job to recognize the death. I don't agree with that. So we need to be smarter about getting people back face to face.
Very good. Maybe the next talks with Dave is how we do that.
All right, man.
I like it. Well, thank you so much for being a featured sponsor of the Unconference and for cooking us lunch yesterday. Your team had that idea. It was awesome because my wife and I were like, what are we going to do for food? And like a couple minutes later, I got the email from Lori about, like, can we cook dinner?
That's right.
Talks with Dave, you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on connectingdirectors.com. If you search Talks with Dave, that's where it lives. So, Dave, thank you so much.
One final thing, just a quick summary. I am an undertaker. I like the word undertaker better than funeral director because we undertake the responsibilities of others. That's where undertaker came from. So I love that. We have a network of 700 people that represent Inman by contract, by standards, and then lastly, we're insured.
Okay.
And that's our travel plan.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave, so much. I appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Okay. Live stream. Don't go anywhere. We are going to take a short, on the money, 5-minute break because when we come back, I am going to be with John Lefrandt, and then we're going to have Cremation Recycling. We're going to do an AI conversation with Curtis Funk and Antonio Green. So come back, 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere. So don't come back. Just stay. See you in 5. What's up? We're back. Okay, here we are. We are going to launch the second half of day 2, which is going to be awesome because, like, I love one-on-one conversations. We talk so much about relationships in this space. So everybody that I'm going to talk to this afternoon, I've got a relationship with. We've built friendships. We've worked together. We've done things together. And so, John, I want to take it back to when our very first conversation. I was in my office in Ohio. You were just launching Domanicare. You called, how can we connect? Tell us about what you do. You were filling me in on what you do. And then we were at ICCFA. And here's what I'll never forget. It was Quincy's birthday, because Quincy's birthday and my wife's birthday are always the week of ICCFA. It never fails. At the beginning of April. And you knew it was Quincy's birthday. We'd never met. And somehow, because we have daughters that are the same age, you brought Quincy, you and Riley had brought Quincy this like really nice gift basket and just celebrate her, which was really cool. It was the first time we met in person.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, you bet.
And then my family spent 10 months in Park City, Utah. So we had multiple lunches and visited your guys' office, which is no longer your office because you've moved into like some big campus or something like that, right?
Well, no. So the Elevia team is 100% remote.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have employees in 14 different states. We're all over the place.
Okay.
Home office life.
Let's just go straight to Elevia.
Yeah.
Why switch the name to Elevia when everybody knows Domanicare?
That's a really good question, and one that we kind of wrestled over for a long time. It's been an evolution. When we started 6.5 years ago, it was the Domani Group.
Yep.
And then there was Domani Pre-Need, Domanicare. We had For Grief. It was Domani for Grief. Now it's For Grief. And I think it's just the evolution of business. Domanicare was very synergistic with aftercare, or synonymous, right? It was like we were an aftercare program. And what has transpired since is that it really has evolved into a consumer experience and consumer engagement platform, as we've been able to do so many other campaigns for our partners beyond that, and also been able to reach across the aisle to our partners in the grief space, and also those in hospice as well. So kind of through that, it started to emerge and differentiate, and the name Domani is tomorrow. That's kind of more of the origin story there with care. And what Elevia stands for is just so much more in line with where that business is going. And so we're really excited about it.
So what does Elevia stand for?
Well, so Elevia, the origin word, everyone's like, how do you pronounce it? It's going to take 6 years, just like it took 6 years for everyone to figure out Domanicare. But the origin there is the word elevate. And we really view ourselves as partners, and kind of our tagline is, we're here with you. And we view it as that we're there to help our partners elevate and ascend the mountain. Everyone's trying to climb. We stop sometimes and we check out base camp, and then we keep going. We're there with you every step of the way, saying, how can we help? And to be innovative with it and say, okay, where are you dropping the ball? How can we find an ability to be a clone of who you are so you can reach more people than ever before? And we do it all on behalf of our partners, and we're able to elevate them and make them the pillars of the community that we know that they are and that we want them to continue to be. So that's kind of the origin of the name and the direction in which we're going, but it really has evolved beyond just aftercare.
Okay, so we've evolved. So the what Domanicare did still exists.
Absolutely.
That didn't go away. So clarification that.
Yeah, 100% still a lot of our bread and butter. And I think that was super helpful for us. It was very foundational to build something that we did really, really well. And that continues to be a very well-oiled machine. But it's like I said in the panel earlier, I tell all of our clients and our partners or even future prospects, it's milk before meat. It's hard to change and adapt. We can start on that one thing first, and once you see the magic and the power of that program, then their eyes generally are open to, oh, could we try it here? Could we try it there? And the answer is yes, we absolutely can. And we can get even more customized with it and strategic with it. And those that have caught the vision have opened our eyes too, and oh my goodness, this is so incredible that we can do the follow-up in this way and that. It's been really, really cool.
Okay, can you give some case examples of elevating above just the aftercare? If we're talking about customer experience, like you said, that goes beyond just aftercare. What does that mean, and what are some examples of how you're doing that?
Yeah, so a couple different things. Let's go over to the pre-need side of the house, and my origin story was definitely in the pre-need space as well. Started in 2011. So I can be pre-need minded, but our partners have been able to, our really, really good partners have said, hey, can we do surveys after pre-need appointments? Absolutely. Can we do a text message, from the owner, to the families that are there? Thank you so much. Did you, that can do a survey, get feedback on that experience. That then gives them an idea of how are our pre-need agents doing? Are they doing their job well? Are they presenting all that they should be presenting, right? And then they can also ask what additional things. The hard part with like pre-need, and I know this from the homesteaders, side as well, the average policyholder lives for 8 years after they write their policy. You're often just engaging on that one appointment and then hopefully never again, right, until you die. But it doesn't need to be that way. You can continue the relationship with those pre-need families over the course of that 8 years. I think a good business does do that and thinks of what other value can I provide to keep that relationship strong with those people. They're a part of your community. They also can take their pre-need policy somewhere else, and so you need to keep that relationship going. So that's another example on the other side of where our program can definitely help enhance that.
So what are you most excited about moving forward with the rebranding? I mean, do you have a partnership with homesteaders still?
Yeah, so definitely still have a partnership with homesteaders. And a lot of custom things that we're doing with a lot of their third-party marketing groups. Each one's kind of doing different strategies and approaches, through that. Doing a ton in the grief space too with forgrief.com and some exciting things that I'll hopefully have done and buttoned up by NFTA. We're doing a lot of events now too in the grief space, and we've built a For Grief Speakers Bureau with some best-in-class grief experts. They are Today Show contributors. They're phenomenal authors, nationally recognized, and we've been able to again use technology to be able to amplify their voices and be able to have them reach families in different ways and creative ways on behalf of the funeral homes. So it's been really exciting. I just think we spent a long time building the foundation and building the tools so that the systems and processes and everything could flow, and that we got a good core base of just raving fans and an employee group that now has a number of years of experience under their belts. And now we've been able to take that and say, how can we amplify that and take that to the next level? And later this year, we'll hit 1 million families that we've served since we started. So we're just so proud of that, but we know that it's still only the beginning.
Yeah, that's super cool. And all of your text messages are automated, right?
So every text is sent by, read by, and responded by live humans. And I think that's some of the secret sauce and kind of the power behind Elevia. And that's not dogging on any other automated solutions that are out there. It's just what makes us, I think, really unique. And it's super meaningful to be able to have real human connections with that. And I think from the first campaign I ever did, I remember sitting in my office and sending out, it was like 35 to 40 text messages, and immediately the responses came in, and my heart just like felt for these people because I've been there before. And I know that it can be hard to get help and support and to have the conversations around the subject matter of death. And once you can build that connection with those individuals, even via text message, it's just a magical moment that you can provide a lot of value and strengthen that relationship. So it's been awesome.
That's cool. And I will say that I do get confused with a lot of clients when they talk about Elizabeth. I don't know if they actually have an employee named Elizabeth or if it's your Elizabeth, but she's made an impact.
Yeah, Elizabeth is a very, very popular employee, for sure. The majority do use that name, although we did a testimonial on our social media last week. Renee, they had decided to name their responder after his mother-in-law that passed away, and felt like this was the way that she could continue to live on, and her name would be there helping all of these people. And I thought, gosh, that's really, really cool, like the power. And so you don't have to use the name Elizabeth. It could be whatever you would like it to, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for being a featured sponsor of the Unconference, being here with us. Really appreciate the friendship.
Thank you, my friend. Good to be here.
All right. Okay, we're gonna keep moving, and I'm gonna bring my friend Kevin McKay with Cremation Recycling up. Some of you may know him because he's famous now from Scrap Talkin' with Kevin. Famous. Are your daughters here?
They are, actually.
Are they in here listening? Where are they at?
They're just outside the glass door.
Bring them in here. They need to see their dad and like celebrate their dad here. Come on.
This is actually the first time they've ever been to anything work-related.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, let's go. Welcome, girls. Like, I wanted you to see your dad, because your dad's pretty dope. And
you heard it here.
That's right.
So.
What's up, brother? Who was that?
That's that
there
one.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right. That's cool. That's cool. I love that your girls are with you. Like, this is a family profession, and that's cool.
It is cool. They're at that age now where I can leave them if I need to, you know. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it is.
Can they drive yet?
Not yet. That's the next step of very helpfulness. Yeah.
Very, very helpful.
Drive themselves mostly. Yeah.
I think I've got one driving around picking up Chipotle, because we're gonna have Chipotle for lunch. So she should be driving around picking up Chipotle. That is helpful.
I can only imagine.
Is helpful. All right, cool, Kevin. Like, our relationship is probably one of the newer relationships in the space. Like I mean, Connecting Directors hasn't done a lot, nor has Disrupt done a lot on the cremation recycling side. And you and I had a conversation probably 2 years ago. I'm like, man, this is like an untapped conversation that affects so many funeral homes and crematories across the country. And I've learned a ridiculous amount from you of like, it's what you do is, as a refiner, goes beyond just melting metal. Like, and that's, my perception was, okay, every funeral home I've been into with a crematory has a 5-gallon bucket that's got stuff in it. That was the extent of it.
Right.
So break down what you do and how it's more than just melting metal.
Well, yeah, so what you're kind of talking about is that if we didn't do that, it would just wind up in a landfill. Yeah, well, you have two options. It either gets thrown out or it gets recycled. So you don't have to be, you know, a hacky sack kicking hippie to recycle, you know, as a lot of funeral directors or undertakers are not that at all. They're pretty conservative, right? So recycling, they would, you know, typically probably, you know, maybe shun away from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, certainly. But this is different. And this makes sense, you know, from a financial perspective, but to your point, you know, you would just imagine, you know, a funeral or a crematory rather would just have a bucket with metal sitting there. So we do provide that. So it's not just from the financial angle, it really is providing a service, and a lot of those crematories have taken the opportunity to present that to the families that they service by saying, you know, here's the impact that we've had, you know, from an environmental perspective, but in a lot of cases, the funeral homes that we work with actually choose to donate the money. which is a great thing to do. We never tell them what they should be doing, but it's a great way for them to, effectively extend their marketing budget, because they're cutting big checks to whether it's a hospice or some sort of shelter, in their community or a church. It's a great way to get their name out there, and they're given amounts of money that they otherwise wouldn't be able to do. So it is pretty impactful from that level.
And I mean, like, one of the things that we do the scrap talking with Kevin, where we talk about some of these things. The other thing that I've learned from you, and we started doing, is on a weekly basis, you're giving kind of a market metal report, almost like a stock report on metal, because precious metals fluctuate. And I've learned from you that there's a strategy behind when the metal gets refined, when the crematory sends it to you. Talk about that, and then assay reports and how you're really coaching and consulting with the funeral home. It's more than just, hey, grab your metal and ship it to us.
Yeah, and that's where the transparency component comes into play, which is something that we've pushed from the moment we came into this space. Is it's one thing to just use the buzzword term, transparency, and it's another thing to actually be transparent, and actually show and give good customer service and explain things. To the point you made about the market report, anytime I speak, I will often say, palladium is not just the name of a roller rink in your community. It's actually a very valuable metal. That has been used in dental prosthetics for a number of years. So to that point, a lot of funeral homeowners had no idea palladium was, that they had some of this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, was worth over $3,000 an ounce. And in a lot of cases, they had a lot of it. So they needed somebody to, sort of explain to them, don't just look at the NASDAQ or the Dow Jones or the S&P. You guys should be, looking at the precious metal market. Not so much that they're going to make decisions based off of it, but that they're actually aware of it. So how much is that gold or that palladium that I just sent in actually worth? Why am I getting a check for $15,000, $20,000, $30,000? This is bananas to them, right? Because this used to be a 5-gallon bucket that they would throw out. And then somebody came along and they gave them $500. And then 10 years ago, when I went to the first death care meeting that I ever went to, which was Cana in Minneapolis, I would say to somebody who was, very excited about getting a few $100, I said, it was probably worth 10 grand. Let me show you why I know that. Let me explain this to you. Did they explain to you how they came to that number? And that's where the assay report came in. So every settlement that we give,
assay is not a bad word, by the way.
You can make it a bad word, but no, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you drop a couple letters, it is. But assay is simply just the process of determining the elemental content in something. So a geologist would use an assay technique to determine what is this. They found a stone or something that will tell them exactly what it is. So that's what we do. So we can determine precisely how much of every element that's contained in the metal that they send into us after we've melted it. That's where the transparency part comes in, is actually divulging what those true percentages are.
Which is powerful, because you've told me stories of how funeral homes are using, what they're recycling and the money they're getting back, whether it's donations, whether it's, helping the bottom line of their business in a tough time, and different things. So I think tomorrow we're recording a scrap talking with Kevin, but we've got a guest on that isn't a partner with you, talking about just recycling in general. So give me something that makes Cremation Recycling, your company, unique in the recycling world.
Well, and piggybacking off of what you just said too is, whether it's donations or it's just helping the bottom line, we've had to have installed probably 200 brand new separating processors. These are processors that do exactly what it sounds like, which is it separates out all of the higher or potentially higher value, very small metals. That if you didn't have one of these types of processors, you'd have to pluck it out by hand. And when a crematory is doing that, they're bound to miss, probably 80% of those metals. These processors were designed by B&L, Matthews, facultative, to enable the crematory owner to hand back the cleanest cremated remains. There's no screws, snaps, staples, none of that. But what's great is that they're able to actually recover these potentially high-value metals too. So we've been able to do that. So we've been able to put these processors in. They can pay for it over time with money that they're getting from this recycling, and in most cases, newfound, a windfall really, because if they used to get $1,000, maybe they're getting $10 or $15 or $20,000 now. So that was one way that we've been able to help. But the thing that really separates us, that I often say to prospective clients, is I want them to call some of our current clients and just sort of hear it from them, the difference that they've seen. And it starts with that transparency from letting people come in to our facility. In fact, we have a few competitors that are near us. I say, we'll fly you in. You can come and check out our facility. You can take the tour, and then I'll drive you to my competitors. And you can go and see, and then you tell me who you want to do business with. Nobody has yet taken me up on it because they've stopped at us.
All right, well, there's 800 people right here. Will someone call Kevin?
Please take me up on it.
He'll fly you in.
Yeah.
And then take you to his competitor.
That's right.
That's cool. And we actually did a scrap talking with Kevin where you kind of took us out into the refinery. Is that what we call it? The plant? Yeah, we saw some wild, it reminded me of the movies where someone goes in the basement and there's like that old furnace that's real scary.
Yeah, or like the last chase scene,
Yes.
they somehow wind up in an industrial plant somehow. They were in a hotel a minute ago, and now they're in a plant.
Yeah.
That's what we've got.
So that should definitely sell that you come for a visit.
Or if you just want to see molten metal, which is
pretty cool too.
Yeah, it's boring to me now, but it's pretty cool the first time you see it. It's happening all day. So
it's been cool just to learn that side of the business. I'm not in a crematory. Again, I'm not a funeral director. I think we've established that. So I've been in a crematory, obviously, and I've seen that bucket, and to understand now at a deeper level what you do, and then the differences around that, because it is important, and there is value in working with the best refiner and transparency. And we spent probably 2 or 3 episodes just talking about the transparency. You've broke down assay reports and what crematories should be looking for and undertakers should be looking for in that assay report, and to be able to tell whether or not the numbers are real in the assay report.
It's tough. I mean, it's an unenviable position for the funeral home owner who, why should they know about the gold or palladium content in this metal from, the cases that they've cremated? They shouldn't. So they really do need somebody that they can have some faith and some trust in, and that's built over time. And I think we do a pretty good job of going to lengths to explain to people. I like to talk about it. Evident by the fact that we have these scrap talking, and we go on location within the plant to say this is the assay lab, this is where we smelt, this is where we do this is trading, there's a lot of components to it. In the end, they just need to be more educated, and I think that's the most exciting thing about where we're at now. Because there's other people in the room where technology is changing and their business is changing. With us, melting metal is melting metal. That's all there is to it. But what's the coolest thing about how it relates to death care is that 10 years ago at that meeting, I'm not exaggerating, probably 90% of all crematory owners, because it's Cana, didn't really even want to talk about it.
Wow.
And it wasn't just me. It was just they didn't talk about it really with anybody. And now today, it's pretty mainstream. I mean, I'm hard-pressed to find somebody who doesn't have a recycling program in their crematory or even know what I'm talking about.
Well, and I would challenge viewers to reach out to you, have a conversation with you, with any of the companies that have been on the panel. I mean, it makes sense to do your due diligence when you partner with somebody. And if you want to go to Chicago,
come on in. Summertime's the best.
Yeah, that's nice. And there's good shopping on Michigan Avenue.
There's pretty good shopping, yeah.
Yeah, so, and your competitors are there too, so there's that. So
there's that.
It's awesome. Okay, last night you pulled up out front of the hotel and you said, "What's up, brother?" And I said, "What's up, brother?"
Yeah.
And your daughter did the same thing. So I'm curious if anybody in the room knows what "What's up, brother" is. Okay, a couple, show
I'm
hands.
aware of it. I just didn't know where it came from.
Okay. No.
All right, so maybe it's a sub 45. I'm 50, so maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you for, one, committing to do scrap talking with Kevin. Like, it's fun for me because, again, it's a side of the business that I'm not familiar with every single day. I've learned a lot from you. You're insanely knowledgeable, and one of the things that I think is unique and valuable about a partnership with you is your ability to take a complex, high level, something that we all don't know a lot about, and break it down to make it very understandable. So thanks for being here. Thanks for bringing your daughters with you. I think it's awesome. They get to experience Scottsdale and some nice weather for a few days.
Yeah,
so.
I feel like we know what the surface of Mars feels like now.
Yeah,
And this
well,
is hot.
Look, it's hot, but it's also, it kind of looks like, I think this is what Mars is going to look like flat and then a rock and then flat and then a mountain,
And some
but it's
golf
not
courses.
that hot.
Yeah, it's very nice. Scottsdale's been great, so yeah.
You playing golf while you're here?
I played a couple times.
Good.
I played once, actually, and then once in Florida. We were just in Florida.
Okay. Yeah. You guys are on a world tour. That's awesome. Way to go. Cool
They have
dad.
the life.
That's good.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks,
Kevin.
brother.
Appreciate
you,
it.
man.
All right. Awesome. Man, good conversation. I don't know if there's another conference where you get all these topics all in 2 days, like bam, 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 bam. So that's fun. And this is not a conference. I keep calling it a conference. It's an event. It's the unconference because it's not a conference. All right, we're going to move on to a topic that I think aligns very well with the technology conversation we had yesterday, but I believe has more impact on death care right now than we really realize, and that is AI. And I want to bring up my friend Antonio Green. And everybody stick around, don't leave. We got Chipotle after this. And make sure that you are getting your merch. There is free swag and merch. We've got some really cool book bags, luggage scales, last responder hats and koozies and socks and golf balls and all kinds of cool stuff. So if you're on the live stream, be here next year and you get all this cool stuff too. So thank you to every company that's brought giveaways. And again, Tukios, our title sponsor, with my kids opened up the book bags as we were putting them back. They're like, Dad, these are Coda packs. And I'm like, what's that? And so Coda packs are really dope bags. So nice work, Curtis. All right, my friend Antonio Green. Antonio, we do some cool stuff together, but I talk to a lot of funeral directors and spend a lot of time on the phone with funeral directors, and you are probably one of the most advanced in just understanding AI, how it can impact your business. And so we were in a conversation a couple months ago, and I'm like, we need to have you a part of the unconference where you can just give some real life application to how a high call volume funeral home is using AI literally on a day-to-day basis for efficiency and to make things easier. But before we get to that, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, all that.
So Antonio Green, 4th generation funeral director at James H. Cole Home for Funerals in Detroit. We're a 105-year-old firm, one of the largest firms, if not the largest, in Michigan. So I kind of got into AI just by going to conferences, attending mastermind events outside of our industry. So a lot of the things that I do with talking with others are outside of our industry because you gain so much perspective on what we're missing in the industry, what the rest of the world is doing in their business to help it do better, help it grow, help it adhere to the times. You don't really get a lot of that in our business. So I learn a lot by attending conferences and meetings and such outside of our industry. And one of those things that came up on a little over a year ago was AI, and just kind of dove headfirst into it. And really over the last probably 9 to 10 months, I've really learned how advantageous it can be, even for a small business like most of our funeral homes are. Simple things like a couple months ago, I was doing a comparison, looking at pricing, seeing what we should do as far as price increases. And I looked at, everybody knows surcharges. If you're getting caskets from any manufacturer, you probably had surcharges over the last couple years. So I was looking at our surcharges last year, so I was like, man, am I gonna have to go through every month of invoices and just count up the surcharges of what we had over the last year or so? So I was like, wait a minute, I can just drop this in AI. So I go on ChatGPT, take all the PDFs of each bill, drop it in there, and just tell it, hey, I need to know what the surcharges were, give me a total, and I gave it a couple other prompts that I wanted to itemize out, and there it goes. 5 seconds later, it spits out a whole list of each surcharge is itemized per month and the total, and then saved me 20, 30 minutes at least of work just going through all these individual things. So, or I could have, hit up my casket rep and said, hey, I need this information, but I had to wait a day or so to get it. And meanwhile, it takes a few seconds just to do it. So, I mean, that's just one example of what you could do. So don't think of AI in the funeral industry as writing obituaries. I mean, that's not even scratching the surface. What you can use it for is just so much more. I would challenge you even Googling. Stop Googling. Go on, if you're going to use whatever LLM or large language models, what like ChatGPT is, use that. Don't even Google anymore. Use that to ask your questions. You're not going to have to go through a whole list of responses and Google searches. Put your question in there, ask it for top 3 responses, and it's going to spit out information that you need. So, in saying that, I've got a couple platforms.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about these, but I want to like real quick. Give us AI. When we say AI, what does that mean? And then you've already mentioned ChatGPT, so tell us about that.
Yeah, so AI, artificial intelligence. There's different, what they call LLMs or large language models. That's what ChatGPT is. I won't go too far and nerd out with you. That's what me and Curtis will do here in a minute and bore you guys. But large language models, ChatGPT, by OpenAI, that is the most popular large language model. There are a couple different ones, and the team is going to drop these in the chat just so you guys have them. But Claude, Claude.ai by Anthropic, that's another really good one. I really like Claude. I use that one just as much as I do ChatGPT. And do yourself a favor, spend the $20 a month and pay for the paid versions. So many people, even business owners I talk to, like, oh yeah, just use the free version. Like, no, you can afford $20 a month to just use the paid model. It's so much better, especially with Claude, their Opus 3, Claude 3 Opus rather. I mean, it's super smart. ChatGPT, they just dropped the new 4.0, and that is super fast. I was so impressed when it came out. So yeah, do yourself, find a couple models that you like, use the paid version. So ChatGPT, everybody knows that one, Claude.ai, and then also Perplexity. So if you guys are using any kind of research that you want to do, Perplexity is awesome because it gives you the research. It tells you what sites it visited. It gives you the evidence that it found. There's so many times, so many stories you hear of how AI just created a story or it created a certain circumstance, and rather than you doing your own due diligence, the person didn't. They just used that at face value and they got in trouble for it or got embarrassed by it. So you always want to do your due diligence when using AI, but Perplexity is one that will give you its sources at the end of it. So those are my 3 apps, and all of them have downloadable apps for the phone too. Perplexity, Claude, and ChatGPT. Download the apps on your smartphone. You can use them right from there. So that's the LLMs, the most popular versions, the ones I recommend. And number 2 is prompting. When you're using AI, using the right prompt. So what a prompt is the question. Whatever you're going to type in that field and ask it, that's what prompting is. So rather than just asking it a question, you need to do what they call optimizing your prompt. So the team, I sprung this on them at the last minute, but we're going to try and get this up so you guys can see it. We're going to do a little example here.
Are we live with this?
We are live.
We are, okay. Real live example. Let's go.
So in ChatGPT, you can create your own GPTs. So I've created this one, a little quick and dirty one called a prompt optimizer. So if the team, you click that first on the left button, the prompt I want to optimize is, so you just go on there. And the team will throw this link in the chat too, because anybody can link to this GPT, so you can use it right now. So we'll do an example here. Let's have the team, let's type this in. Instead of just asking ChatGPT, let's say you've got an avid golfer and you want some ideas on how to create an awesome service for an avid golfer. So rather than typing that in, we're going to optimize the prompt first. So guys, type this in. Give me 10 different ideas to use for a homegoing service for an avid golfer. So rather than just using that and typing it in and putting it in your LLM and letting it spit out the results, we're going to put it into this prompt optimizer first. So let's go ahead and see what it comes out with. So this is what's going to be your new prompt. Rather than just that simple one-liner, this is what you're going to put in. So can anybody read that off? My vision isn't that good from here.
Let me give somebody a microphone.
You want to bring? Yeah.
I can run up there and read it real quick.
Okay.
Here's the prompt. The prompt is, so we put in, give me 10 ideas to use for a homegoing service for an avid golfer. The new prompt is now, act as an event planner specializing in personalized memorial services. I need 10 creative ideas for a homegoing service tailored to an avid golfer. The ideas should honor their passion for golf and create a meaningful experience for attendees. Include a brief description for each idea and explain how it reflects the individual's love for the sport. Ensure the suggestions are respectful and suitable for a memorial service. So first, what I want you to do off of that, Antonio, is break down the value of explaining a prompt that way to ChatGPT.
Now, it should be obvious. So just like asking anybody, if you ask them a simple question, you're going to get a simple response. But if you give them a whole paragraph of what you want from them, how you want from them, what are the deliverables? So just like when you're giving orders or giving tasks to an employee, the things that you break down, the more details that you can give the LLM, the more information, the more context you can get it, the better response that you're going to get from it. So I know a lot of times, especially when ChatGPT first got popular and people put it in there and said, oh, that was nice, it gave me some information, and that was it, and they stopped using it. But using this, optimizing your prompt, and you don't have to use this, there are tons of prompt optimizers out there. Don't pay for it. I mean, there's people on YouTube now that are making plenty of money by charging you for these optimized things. Don't pay for it. You can get tons of stuff for free right on GPT. But the idea of being able to provide it with as much context as possible, and then optimize your optimized prompt. Like, so once it gives this, if you think of something else, add it to this and optimize it again. The more context you can keep getting it, the better responses you're going to get.
I love this because, like, I've argued with, argue's a strong word. I've had conversations with my kids' educators on the use of ChatGPT in school. And what I believe the value is of that is, like, you're teaching critical thinking. Like, the AI is only as good as the prompt that you put in. So if we would have just threw the first prompt that was one sentence in the ChatGPT, you would have got very basic responses back, correct?
Exactly.
And this prompt now is going to give more detail, and you told it exactly what you wanted.
Right.
Okay, so you're the funeral director. You put that the prompt in the optimizer. You get that prompt back. Now what do you do with that, the optimized prompt?
So you'll copy and paste that optimized prompt, and then you put that. So what I do a lot, like I said, I like Claude, so I'll use my GPT in ChatGPT, get the optimized prompt, and then go over to Claude and put it in there. Then I'll come back into ChatGPT and see what the response is there. But you can copy and paste this and use it across any LLM that you want to use. So that's the idea behind
Okay,
using it.
and that sounds like a lot of steps, but the actual amount of time that it takes you to do that is what?
Yeah, I mean 15 seconds. Just type in what you want, optimize the prompt, copy and paste it either back into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using, and get the results. So I mean, you're talking, there's 2 steps. So
Okay,
20 seconds.
so now you've done that. How use cases for how you've done this to more efficiently serve a client family better in the funeral home?
So similar to that, similar to the example we just used, if you're trying to figure out how to differentiate your services, you're trying to figure out how to help this family come up with ideas, you've got a source right here sitting at your fingertips. So being able to just type in, just like we just did, what do you want? Give me some ideas, and it just helps you develop. So one family in particular, they wanted, it was a pet lover, a dog lover in particular, and we were trying to figure out some ideas on how to incorporate pets into the service or dogs into some kind of like that. So I went to ChatGPT and have it give out a bunch of ideas. Scrap some I knew wouldn't work, but then took 5 or 6 to the family and said, hey, would any of these ideas work for you? And they said, yeah, I do like this idea. So being able to offer more personalized services that you don't have to rack your brain over creating. And using this, so if anybody hasn't, you need to get this book, is Who Not How. By Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I mean, the book, it'll be life-changing. So, and this applies so much, especially to owners and managers in our field. So do yourself a favor, pick up that book. I don't get any money off of it. But it's really an influential book that, there we go, guys, got on there. Who Not How, there you go. So this will show, the premise behind this book is, don't ask how you can get something done. Out of everything that you've learned over the last 2 days, so much stuff that could benefit your business, you don't ask, how can I do this? You need to ask who. Who can I hire to do this? Who on my team can do this? And if you're thinking, I don't have time, I don't have money to hire anybody else, well, you don't have a reason not to. There's no way that you hiring somebody to do these things is not going to 10x your business. So being able to find that who, not asking how, is going to change your perspective and how you view things.
I love it. And so, I mean, you and I have had a lot of deep conversations on this. You partner with us for your marketing. We've been using some different things on your website to learn about who's coming to your website and partnership with Tukios and that, and analyzing that data. And we used, talk about just the analyzation of data and what we found from analyzing website visitors, just throwing that into, I think we used ChatGPT, and break this down, tell me who my ideal customer is for my website traffic.
So twofold. So one thing that I did, kind of going back to the marketing panel, was I wanted to know who my ideal client was, how to market to them. So I used a Qualtrics survey. I created a Qualtrics survey, and I identified last 3 or 4 years my top 100 clients. So those families who, they spend a decent amount of money with us, they were great to work with, just your ideal client. So I took 100 of those families, and I had one of my secretaries call each one to tell them, you're going to be receiving an email. It's a marketing survey. We are upfront with them. It's a marketing survey, but we want your help. We want to attract more families like you because you're one of our most valued customers. So will you help us? That phone call, that initial phone call, got them to be on the lookout for the email. So after she would call 20 families a day, I'd send 20 emails out with the survey. So we got about a quarter of the people to respond to this. And what we learned, I mean, this wasn't, just your run-of-the-mill survey. This was asking them, what do you do in your spare time? Where do you shop? Your favorite retail place. What are your hobbies? And we were able to create a whole mold, or what do you call it? The customer base. We create the Profile, there you go. We were able to create a profile around our ideal client and turn that over to Ryan's team, and now they know how to maximize our marketing dollars because this is who we want to concentrate on marketing to.
Yeah, and we learned some things too about a different set of customers that change the way that you offer payment structure and different things based off of their interests online, websites, by analyzing a large data set and going, okay, here's commonalities. And so, like, there's so many business applications this, and like this conversation I probably should have planned more time for, because like we could go really deep, and you and I have had a lot of deep conversations, but I want to bring Curtis up as well and let you guys kind of, I don't know if I want to be, I'll just stay in the middle, pick a mic, any mic. Red mic, make the red mic hot. And all right, so Curtis and I did last year a AI webinar. You've traveled, you've been speaking on AI, and if you want to bring my friend Antonio to your conference, your stage show, hire him to speak on this topic and plenty of other topics, because super knowledgeable, and you're hearing it firsthand from a funeral professional implementing this. But it's really cool to have a leading technology provider in the space, a leading funeral home in the space that's utilizing AI. I listened to you guys talk last night, and I'm like, I've never felt more dumb when it came to understanding AI and technology and its impact and where it could go from here, like scary levels, but also like the application of just, like you even said, like if we only use AI just to write obits, like we've missed the mark. Like there's so much more that we could be doing in the space. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you about, you broke down last night, like where we're currently at in the state of AI and technology, and then like how that advances, but like why it doesn't need to be crazy scary, and that we should really do a better job understanding it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton to unpack for sure.
Simplify it. Make it easy.
Let me hit on just like a few things I think are easy to understand. Like when we talk about what AI is, it's really a network of machines that are kind of doing work for us, right? And so, one analogy we use a lot in some of the presentations we've done on AI is like, when it comes to farming, it started out with a man and a tool. He had a sickle. We've had sickles for 10,000 of years or whatever it is. And then, it went from a man sitting on a tractor or having a plow. And that was like a man who's now machine assisted. It's no longer a person with a tool. It's a person who's assisted by a machine. And now we've got these super complex combines that are hundreds of systems working simultaneously that go out there, and they're like some of the most incredible technology we see in the world is farming equipment, right? And what it can go out and do, all working simultaneous. And so so that's one way to look at it, and another way to look at just AI is, as Antonio's been hitting on, like large language models. That's what we call artificial narrow intelligence. It does one thing. It's a chat bot. It'll teach you. You can learn from it. It'll analyze data, which that was awesome that you're doing that with your surcharges and stuff. And so what the AI world is working toward now is what's called artificial general intelligence, where you're going to have an AI agent that can do like a lot of things. You can hire this AI agent to do anything that a remote worker would do for you. And as a technology provider, that's super exciting, because what it costs us to hire senior engineers to work on software, if we can hire an AI agent that can do that and learn the languages and learn our software and code for us 24 hours a day at whatever decreased cost that'll be incredible. And then the third level of that, going from artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence, the third level is artificial super intelligence, and that's when we think about Terminator and Skynet taking over the world, that's when artificial intelligence, surpasses humans in every way. And they think that all the experts think it's the artificial general intelligence is not far off. It's within a couple of years or less. So that's that point. I can hit on the scary stuff,
real quick, like on the scary side, I want to kick it over to Antonio of, in a profession where we're going, okay, we can't make ourselves obsolete, and technology is replacing what we do. Like as a funeral director, where do you see your role in partnership with the technology, as it's not scary, it's not going to put you as the funeral home owner, funeral director out of business because of using AI?
You're always going to need, that empathetic funeral director, at least for the near future, until you've got actually robots sitting down and doing work. I mean, you're going to need that human person there. Now, we can make it easier. So things that I'm working on with my AI team now is making it so you can get information. The client can go to our website and get pricing information. They can make arrangements online, but that's not going to be for everybody. Most people are still going to want to come into the funeral home and have that one-on-one conversation. But like we were saying yesterday on the technology panel, is technology, AI, the things that it can do for our software companies, and being able to streamline data across the platforms, being able for these companies now to use modules. So, and put my owner hat on, any funeral home owner manager I've spoken to is not 100% satisfied with their case management system. It's always, or they think they are, then they go to the conference and see something and say, hey, I wish they could do that. So where the future of our industry, especially software, goes should be, and AI can definitely assist with this, like Curtis said yesterday, is streamlining that data across anything. Any software company should be able to have a streamlined data. So now each company can have modules. So a funeral home owner can come in and say, you know what, I want Tukio's website, I want Passari as my case management system, I want 365's accounting system, I want Tribute as my death tracker system. And all those modules can plug and play nicely together, and you can use each one because there's a streamlined data. Now, will I pay more for that than going with one company? Sure, but if I can custom make something that works for me and works for my business, then that's ideal for everybody.
You're the tech guy.
No, yeah, amen. I mean, we were talking about that yesterday. I think that's really important. But to back up a little bit, I think Antonio hit on a really great point, which Dave hit on earlier, which is high tech versus high touch. I think those are the words you said, right? Like, yeah, technology is going to get more and more pervasive in the funeral home, but it's never going to remove that need for the high touch. And what it will hopefully do, and I think we hit on this in the technology panel yesterday, but I think it's worth reiterating. Hopefully what technology will do will be give the funeral director all the time he or she needs for those high touch moments, right? Get rid of all this stuff. When like the humanoids and everything else show up, let them wash the cars, let them pull the cars around, let them do everything else, like all that stuff that you don't need to spend your time doing, and really spend on finding out what kind of water they want to drink and putting that in the fridge. Like that kind of stuff is what's going to have the highest impact, is when you're at those high touch items. I think that's where technology should be.
And you can do that now. You can really start, using AI, learning how to use it now to save time, save time in analyzing those documents, going over your accounting and having it streamlined. Ask suggestions, just using ChatGPT, and ask it for suggestions on, here's the scenario, analyze my accounting reports for the last year and give me some examples of how I can change certain things to be more profitable. Rather than you racking your brain for days on end, use, these LLM models now to save yourself time.
Yeah, one other point too, I think this comes up a lot when you're having a AI conversation, where funeral directors usually start asking questions is on the legal side of this, right? They're like, how legal is this to use? What should I be thinking about from a legal perspective? And there's 3 points I would make. One is an acceptable use policy inside the funeral home. Like, what's acceptable use of AI from your employees? That should be in your handbook. You want to write the acceptable use policy, use Antonio's prompt optimizer, right? And have it say, I need you to start work on an acceptable use policy for our team. Put that in your employee handbook. Make sure your employees understand what they need to do. And a couple things you're going to want to make sure they do. You're going to want to make sure that they have the family sign off on the use of the AI, right? And in that, you want to cover yourselves and say sometimes AI does hallucinate, sometimes AI does make a mistake, and you want to make sure, in that sign off that you're saying, when that happens, we will fix it as soon as possible if that happens. And the last thing is on the licensing side of AI. Most of these models are very generous to the user, where they say, like, if you wrote the prompt, whatever comes out, you've got the copyright for it, right? And they'll even, in a lot of their terms of use, have an indemnification for the user. So, like, if you're the user and you ask DALL-E for an image or Midjourney for an image, and it makes this really beautiful picture that you're using for something, and it basically ripped off a Van Gogh painting or something, and Van Gogh comes back from the dead, tries to sue the AI company. You know what I mean? You're indemnified as the user in a lot of cases with these models. So you just want to make sure you're just aware of the terms of use and how you can use it, and then make sure both families and employees are signing off on, like, how you're using it and what's acceptable, and your plan of action if there is any sort of mistake making. It's really not that much work. You can whip that together in like an hour or less and have that process in place. But that, because there's so much concern I think people have with AI, that kind of helps a little bit.
This conversation's dope. I don't know. I like this conversation. We could go for hours, but we're going to wrap it here with best way to get a hold of you, again, as our title sponsor. Thank you so much for that and partnering with us, and legit just being a friend and somebody that I've grown, we can say grown up, it's been long enough now. We've grown up in the space together, so thank you for that. But best way to get a hold of Tukios?
You can go to tukios.com, or if you want to email me, it's just curtis@tukios.com.
Antonio, if people want to jam with you on some of the other things that you're doing outside of just being a funeral director in AI, bridging the gap and understanding and consulting and coaching funeral homes on how to take grumpy dad and young daughter and make everybody work together, multi-generational, right?
Yep, that's kind of what I've been doing the last couple of years. Most of the national convention, a lot of state conventions I've spoken at, about bridging the gap between specifically the millennial generation and baby boomers. So I've been doing a lot of speaking on that. I wrote a book based on that. So anyway you want to get a hold of me, you can go to my digital business card, bizcoachantonio.com, so B-I-Z, coachantonio.com. I work with funeral homes, funeral directors, one-on-one for coaching and consulting on anything from technology to incorporating those relationships in the business. So reach out to me or reach out to Ryan. He'll get a hold of me, and look forward to working with you guys.
Love it. Well, live stream, thank you so much for being a part of the 2024 Unconference. You will get a recording of this in the next week with all of the content that was discussed over the last 3 days. So to the live stream, see you later. Thank you.